Hey now, we are live with the Council of Tolkien, and you cannot see them just yet because they have their rings on, but I have Matt with me.
Everybody, welcome.
And I have Sid with me.
Glad to be here, everybody.
You know, Sid, this is just a personal question, kind of, but I just never thought to ask you until now. Is your name, is it just Sid, or is it short for like Sydney or something, or?
I was born in Sydney, but I've declared myself Sid since I was 8 years old, and I'll stick with it.
So, for all intents and purposes, you are Sid.
Except paying taxes, yeah.
Well, well, I mean, your government name isn't really anybody's business. I was just wondering because sometimes people are just named Sid, and sometimes they're, it's short for, Sydney, or I don't know, Sidolphus. It could be anything.
Yeah, that's true.
Siddhartha, possibly.
Yeah. I mean, there was Sid Barrett, and that wasn't even his real name. His name was Roger.
My first name is really Gluteus Maximus.
Gluteus Maximus.
But
I could tell why you'd go by Matt. Yeah,
I changed that a long time ago.
You changed it to latrine.
Exactly.
Hey now. So yeah, we're going to do the Council of Tolkien, and just as a heads up, guys, Sid is here this month. He will not be here next month because we're going to be doing a play, and Laurel is going to be here instead. Sid will be here. He just won't be on the screen. He'll be in the audience with you guys. Hey, Matt Damon, how's it going? So we're gonna to update everybody on the Beren and Luthien play, of which I have the script right here. Lovely adaptation of Beren and Luthien that Matt wrote. It's going to be performed live here on Twitch as well as on YouTube on the 4th of June. That is, of course, a Thursday. So mark your calendars with that. Make sure you don't miss it because it is going to be a lot of fun, and there's going to be some special bells and whistles as well. There will also be a produced version that will come out later that will have things like music and sound effects. That will be members only on the channel. Hey Tommy, how's it going? But welcome in everybody. We're going to have a lot of fun today. And let's see. I wanted to ask my co-hosts how their month has been.
Go ahead, Sid.
Okay. Been very good. I'm finding more time every day for more writing. So keep an eye out on Quora, including I'm writing about Tolkien, among other things, and feeling a lot better because I have that time and I'm doing that work.
Also, I could tell you one thing that Sid must have done recently. You can't see him yet. You will see him momentarily. Is he must have gotten a haircut very recently, because man,
myself.
Oh really? Because it's looking pretty crispy. I'm just gonna say. You'll see what I mean. How about you, Matt?
Finally got back on my motorcycle after 15 years, so that's been kind of fun.
Wow. Is it fun? You get back, it's just like riding a bike, as they say.
15 years, and honestly, I was like, it's a big bike, it's an Indian, and I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be like, am I gonna, get it still? I mean, I was even self-doubting myself, and oh no, it didn't take very long for it to feel totally normal again and go back in time.
Oh, that's great. That's great to hear, Tommy. Matt, when he was a little bit older than you are now, my father bought a motorcycle. He'd always, wanted one, and he never he went out and he bought this Harley. It was such a ridiculous situation because he discovered that he didn't really know how to ride a motorcycle. So he bought it, and he wasn't able to really he couldn't control it, and he kept falling, and basically my mother told him, you're not allowed out on the bike until you pass the motorcycle driving test, and he never was able to.
It's a really weird thing. People who ride bikes will be like, it's simple in one sense, but if you think about it, for a lot of people, you can see how it's very
It
difficult.
is sort of a reverse of how your hands and eyes work from
Yeah,
driving brain and
it's
everything,
it's balance, it's weight, it's the clutch, it's the shifting, it's the brakes
Yeah.
in the front or on the handle, the brakes in the back or on the foot. So it's like a completely active, all faculty sport.
Yeah. My dad was not able to ride the motorcycle.
If you want to get a comic sense of what that's like, Jim Carrey's Yes Man has scenes of him getting on a Bugatti, which is an incredibly overpowered racing machine,
Yeah.
and the things that happen when you're on a bicycle you can't handle, done in a comic context, not an off to the hospital context. It's just amazing to watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Remember that?
I haven't thought of that movie in quite a while. I found it to be very amusing at the time, at least. I don't know how well it's hold up, but
Well, it's also
I'm
one of those things where you have to change your own oil and brake fluid and gap and change and gap your own spark plug. So it's it's really old school. It's
yeah.
really old school way of doing it.
Well, the motorcycle wound up sitting in the garage until well after my father passed away. We only got rid of it like last year or so.
You mind me asking what year it was and what model it was?
I want to say that it was a 2015 anniversary Harley.
Oh, well, it wouldn't have been a 15. It would have been an 03.
It wasn't
the 100-year anniversary.
It wasn't that old. It wasn't it wasn't the 100-year anniversary. It was an anniversary though.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. It was around 20. I think it was 2015. You know what? I have a folder, or I had a folder of all the paperwork somewhere. I probably don't anymore. We actually sold it back to the same dealership that he originally
Was it
bought
silver
it
and black?
from. There was orange involved.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was orange. Like I said, it sat in the garage for years and never was rid. It got started up because every time we were trying to sell it or something, somebody would have to start it up to see that it runs and whatever. And then we had these issues where people would come to look at it, and my sister would be telling them all sorts of things that weren't true, and she was trying to be the hard sell. Hey Ted, how's it going?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to switch over to the council screen. Are you finished eating there, Sid? I just want to make sure that you're done. Okay. All right, and here we are, and we are here on YouTube, and we are here on Twitch. I want to make sure that the YouTube stream is actually working properly. Because last time that I did a stream where I was reading The Return of the King, I had a few technical problems with multi-streaming, and I'm pretty sure that I got that all figured out. But I did a brief test earlier today, and it was working fine. So I just want to make sure that that we are, in fact, live on YouTube right now. Looks like we are, and everything's fine. Okay, cool. All right, so... welcome to the Council of Tolkien. Let's go around the room and introduce ourselves. Matt, since you're on the left, that means you go first.
Hi, everybody. I'm Matt Richardson. I go by Lore Master on the website and on Quora. For anybody who is on Quora, that's me. And I've been involved in reading and researching Tolkien's works since 1977. And thanks for joining us tonight. We got three pretty cool subjects lined up for you.
Oh, and by the way, Sid, Tommy. Oh no, I'm sorry, it wasn't Tommy. It was Dylan in the chat. Says you're looking fresh.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, and you guys know me. I'm John Sierra. I'm also a Tolkien scholar. I am active on Quora under my real name. And of course, if you're watching this on Twitch or YouTube, you already kind of know where to find me. But I have been studying the works of Tolkien since about 1989, somewhere around that region, a few years after I first read The Hobbit, and I started getting really deep into it. And of course, and then we have Sid Kemp, which I'm pointing this way. I should really be pointing this way.
I'm here. I guess I didn't know this, but I'm the old man on the mountain here. I've been reading and loving and talking about Tolkien since 1972. One of the highlights of my life even now is getting a first edition, first printing of the Silmarillion the day it came out, and just still trying to learn to be a good person with Gandalf as my teacher and keeping at it.
Do you remember what bookstore you were at? Like, I'm sure you had like a pretty vivid memory of buying the Silmarillion.
They're Washington, D.C. It's called Moonstone Bookseller, and it was a science fiction and fantasy bookstore. I believe it is still exists under new ownership, and it was located at
2145 Pennsylvania Avenue Northwest.
Which is right near.
They're still around.
Which is on a circle just north of the Watergate.
Yeah, Moonstone Bookseller, they're still around. That's amazing. It's always interesting when you the first copy of the Silmarillion I had was this ratty little paperback that I got in it was not even like a real bookstore. It was somebody's garage that they sold books out of in a upstate New York town called Northville, which is exactly as small as you think it is from the name. But that happened to be where my grandparents had their sort of summer home that eventually became their home until they moved down here to Pennsylvania. And me and my sister would spend our summers up there. And this place was kind of within walking distance. And, they had really cheap books. That copy of the Silmarillion cost me a whole 50 cents.
Oh, cool.
But I still have that copy. It's not on my bookshelf because I've put it away somewhere. I have a nice hardcover now, but yeah.
My earliest copy of The Lord of the Rings had that green box on the back saying, "And those who respect the rights of living authors will." That was Tolkien's response to the pirate editions put out by Ace.
Yes, those infamous editions. Hey there, Wasted Quake Ranger. How's it going? Oh, see, now Wasted Quake Ranger got their copy of The Hobbit off of one of those reading fair tables, and like the schools, they would have those reading fairs from like Scholastic or some other companies would do it, and sometimes they would also have like the order form, like once or twice a month where you could order things. But then they would have once a year the big fair where they would set up booths, usually either in the cafeteria or the gymnasium. I remember that, when I was a kid. That was a big thing. They did a lot to encourage kids to read, I feel.
I actually have 2 of the 3 of the Pirate Ace editions picked up used. I couldn't get a fellowship. It was just outrageously expensive. But
Laurel showed me, I thought they might have been that, but they weren't. She actually has a couple of really old Portuguese editions of The Lord of the Rings, and I think she has The Hobbit as well.
Cool.
I don't know if you guys know that Laurel speaks fluent Portuguese.
I knew that.
I did not.
See? You learned something, and I learned that Matt already knew that, see? But anyway, guys, we're going to get started here. So just anybody who happens to be watching us for the first time, I will explain the format of the show. We were going to break it into 3 half-hour chunks, where one of us will sort of direct the conversation with a brief 2-minute sort of summarization of what we're going to be talking about. The order today is going to be that Sid is going to go first, and then Matt is going to go second, and I am going to go third. And then after that summation, we will have a half hour to freely discuss that topic. Is the background the fall of Numenor? That's exactly what it is. You're seeing the Calabeth in the background right now. So let me get over to my Google timer here, and I'm going to set up a 2-minute timer for you, Sid. Now, I know, Sid, you mentioned that there's a possibility that you might have to leave early. If that is the case, so it doesn't mess up the geometry of it, leave the camera rolling, and I'll just disconnect you afterwards.
Not a problem.
Okay.
I should be fine now.
I think you'll be fine. I think that there's like an abundance of caution where you think, oh, I don't know, I'm weary and such, and then you get into that mode. You start talking about Tolkien, and you get a little bit of adrenaline going, and it's like, whew.
You guys, I was at you guys It's just tremendous to be here with you, and I hope everyone can feel the fun that the three of us have being together.
This is a fun show.
I'm going to be calling on everyone in the live stream to contribute to this one. So
Okay.
warm up and put your invisible thinking cap on.
Okay, Sid, go ahead. Let's do the summary.
Okay. One of the things we started in January when I began this 5-month deep dive into Gandalf's nature is that he was the steward of the free peoples of
Hi,
Middle
Chris.
Earth, guiding us to empower and lead ourselves. And that in that major purpose, his goal was as close as possible to do nothing, but rather to have everyone do what they were destined to do or called to do or the best they could do, so that we, the free peoples of Middle Earth, free ourselves from the darkness of our own age. One of the greatest victories was that he did not need to fight the Witch King, the Lord of the Nazgul. It was destined that he would, but when the time came, just as he was about to do it as the Witch King rode in victorious through the broken gates of Minas Tirith, the horn sounded across the battlefield. Rohan had arrived, and the Witch King had to go deal with that. And of course, dealing with that meant dealing with Eowyn and Merry, who had joined together, who replaced Gandalf in being the ones, the not men, to take down the Witch King. And Tolkien tells us that this is one of Gandalf's greatest successes. Now, here's the challenge.
10 seconds.
I have a list of 20 things that Gandalf could have done, but he didn't because he trained a person of Middle-earth to do it. I want you to start finding out all the things throughout all of Middle-earth that Gandalf didn't do because others did them with his advice, guidance, support, encouragement.
Okay.
I'm opening this up to
All
not
right.
only you guys, but everybody on the line.
Set the half hour here. And, okay. I just want to comment on, I love that you're talking about this, Sid. I didn't know what direction you were going to go for this sort of final segment in this series that you've been doing. But I love that you're doing this because just about an hour ago, I was on Facebook, and I do talk about Tolkien on Facebook as well, and I saw a post from somebody who really was just talking about the films, but asked, why does Gandalf, who is a wizard, just go around beating the stuffing out of people with his staff and his sword, and we don't see him using, magic spells more often? And before I jump in to answer this question, I looked at all the different comments, and everybody was very correct in all their summations of being that he is not really a wizard like a Harry Potter type situation. He's a wise man. Although he does use magic, that he is an angel, and that is really important, and that sort of magic can be incredibly destructive and can actually even harm him. In The Hobbit, it's mentioned that he was preparing a magical blast to definitively end the Battle of the Five Armies, but that it would have killed him, and then we have the eucatastrophe of the eagles arriving, so he doesn't have to do that. But one thing that nobody mentioned was reliance, and it's the same. And I'm going to answer your open-ended question while I'm also praising the topic, because it's the same reason that he did not involve himself in the scouring of the Shire. Because if he solves all of our problems with his angelic might, when he leaves, it is going to be devastating. He needs to leave. He needs to have us be happy as he leaves Middle-earth, because he really has forged a lot of important friendships and connections with everybody. He loves the hobbits, and he doesn't want to be sad about leaving them or have to worry about what's going to become of them.
I want to say one thing brief in support of that. When you read Gandalf saying that the whole point of the War of the Ring was so that Merry and Pippin and Sam could come back and become great peacetime leaders of the Shire. I think it's essential to reflect on Tolkien's being of the generation who fought and suffered in World War One and came back to rebuild England after World War One and again after World War Two, and he was looking for some meaning in the horror of having to go fight a war for survival.
Sid,
So I think that's a very
there's a
point.
question from the chat that you should address. Tommy wants to know if you want specific examples or more like adjectives that he encouraged onto others.
I have a list of 20 specific examples. Such and such a person did this because Gandalf encouraged him, taught him how, advised him.
And by the
And that's
way,
what I'd like to
to bounce off of your first example of not fighting the Witch King, it wasn't only because Rohan arrived to do it for him, because he was still preparing to chase down the Witch King and still engage with him. It was Pippin's arrival begging him to save Faramir that stopped
that's
Gandalf, and that's really important.
because if you look at what Gandalf does during the entire Battle of Pelennor Fields, 3 of his times were spent saving Faramir.
Mm-hmm.
Faramir was utterly key to the Fourth Age, and Gandalf took on the challenge of keeping the poor guy who was having a really rough time alive.
He also, I think he had a very special bond with the Hobbit Peregrine Took, with Pippin, and he couldn't bear to look this little fellow in the eye and say, I can't save your friend.
Yeah.
Now, an excellent example coming in from the chat from Snuff Club, encouraging Frodo to pity Gollum.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I've written about this many times, that's the key to the resolution of the plot. In The Shadow of the Past, which is the first chapter of the book that Tolkien ever wrote, Gandalf says that he pities Gollum, and Frodo doesn't understand that, because to Frodo, Gollum is a character from a story. He's a boogeyman. And when he sees him, he does understand, because now he's seeing this is a person. This isn't just some character, some evil creature. He's not an orc. In fact, he's a hobbit. He used to be just like me, not in personality, but in, looks perhaps. And, and that's the lessons that came from Yavanna, of patience and mercy and pity and everything like that. But, Tolkien almost never uses flashback narrative. Almost never. He uses it twice in The Return of the King, and both times it's Frodo remembering... in The Two Towers. Both times it's Frodo remembering something that Gandalf taught him, or at least attempted to teach him, and Frodo finally understanding that lesson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Ursula Le Guin wrote a phenomenal essay on why having mercy on Gollum, Frodo needed to do it also for himself, because he knew the ring was doing the same thing to himself, Frodo, as it had done to Gollum.
And
so
it nearly done to Bilbo as well.
Yes.
Matt, you've been quiet. We need to hear from you.
Well, I've been listening to you guys and shaking my head and going,
yeah. Oh, I know, but
you know how it is with us.
For the sake of trying to keep...
I really do try to disagree as much as I can, Sid, but the three of us, it's not. We are reading things accurately, so sometimes it's kind of difficult. I would add a couple things, though. I've been writing a couple ideas here. He didn't claim the ring because it was to be claimed by someone else.
That actually just came up in the chat as well, that he had the humility there.
He didn't. He could have possibly, but he didn't. He let that go. He could have possibly killed Smaug. In fact, I wrote an article about a month ago about how that mission was actually supposed to go down. If anybody wants to read that on Quora, that's actually worth it. It's a pretty good article, actually. Ruling Gondor. If he was really into it, he could have done a lot of things to block Aragorn's rise, and ruled Gondor himself. Defeating the Witch King, we already talked about. I wrote that down first, and we discussed it. Um, Slaying the Great Goblin, um, he basically set the situation up for the company to kill him, with his great flash of light. And I'm glad you mentioned the fact that Gandalf isn't just some kind of uber Boy Scout. He does cast spells. He does
Oh, it
know
happens.
lightning.
It has
He
been known
does
to
have,
happen. Yeah.
yeah, he does know blasts. He does not do that kind of stuff. Um, but he sets that up for them to be victorious there. In that, in so many ways, I mean, I've got a couple other examples. We'll get to them in a second, but in so many ways, he's really channeling, not just channeling, but he's the proper Maya to be hooked up with Narya. He's
Absolutely. Well, that's what
at
Círdan
every
saw. He didn't give the
right.
ring to Saruman.
Yep, that's right. He did see that, even though it's the least powerful of the three, maybe not by very much, but it was the only one of the three hooked up with a Maya, and not only a
Hold
Maya,
one
but
second,
best.
Matt. Can one of my moderators get rid of that bot, please? Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah. So not only was he a Maya hooked up with the third least powerful ring, he was the right kind of Maya at the right time with the right mission. And the harmony of all that is really super powerful because
Thank you.
it keeps coming into the the script, the play that's going on with the characters, and they find this inner fire, this inner challenge, this inner pathway to become valiant. And
Hmm.
sometimes it's in front of them, and they have to make a choice, and sometimes it's not right in front of them and have to find it. And that's really really cool way to think about it, I think. And but I'll let you guys reclaim
Yeah.
the mic here for a minute. I've got three or
Matt,
four others, and
well,
we'll
hold
wait
on.
for them
Matt,
later.
from the chat, and I'll answer
Yeah.
this for you because it's a real quick thing. Joe Quaker is wondering, Gandalf could have killed Smaug? Yes, absolutely 100%. I want you to think about this.
Yeah.
Smaug was killed by an ordinary mortal man. Gandalf, it would have had a much easier time. And this goes into what I wanted to say, and then I'm going to hand it back to Sid. Gandalf's whole raison d'etre in Middle Earth is about harm reduction, reducing the amount of harm that people come to by teaching them things like conflict resolution and how to forge alliances and how to fight the enemy and how the enemy's mind works, which he understands better than most do. Perfect example, the Battle of Helm's Deep. He could have been there the whole time. And that was a battle that Rohan very nearly lost. When Aragorn and Theoden were riding out, they weren't riding out to victory, they were riding out to their demise. They thought, we've lost, let's make it a glorious end. And then Gandalf arrives with Erkenbrand, who was thought to be dead, the Lord of the Westfold, because that's what he was out there doing. He was out there saving lives. He was out there gathering people and giving them purpose and letting them fight the battle that they were meant to fight. Okay, Sid, go ahead.
Two specific responses. First to Matt. And Gandalf's use of Narya, in terms of what we're talking about today, is paradoxical because you get the two of the most beautiful scenes in the entire Lord of the Rings when he uses it to give Bilbo the courage to leave the ring behind for Frodo, and when he uses it to heal Theoden. But both of those is Gandalf showing, well, that and Helm's Deep are arguably the three times Gandalf used the most power.
Oh, and I'm
And
glad
yet
you said Theoden. I'm going to come back to that, just to let you know.
and
Yeah.
he did it, even when he used his power, he did it so those people could use their power. He healed Theoden so that Theoden could go into battle.
Mm-hmm.
He found Erkenbrand so the Rohirrim could save themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, he had that moment of riding down the sunlight where he used his power. But also, I wrote recently about specifically what you're saying about Theoden and Aragorn riding out to their death. The core social image of who are the Rohirrim. They're the ones who will heroically ride to their death. That was their identity.
That's their battle
So
cry.
So somehow someone asked a question that I answered. Why didn't Aragorn say, "Hey, look, Gandalf promised he'd be back on day 5"? Because he wanted Theoden to be utterly battle-driven and fell.
And
And
to
this
have
all
faith
actually,
as well, the strength that comes
and
from
have faith.
faith.
But it's also something out of The Art of War by Sun Tzu. If you really want everyone to fight at their best, make them think they're going to die. Because
Now,
people don't like to kill, they'll only do if they have to.
yeah, all right, if I'm going, I'm taking as many as I can with me. That sort of mentality. Now, you mentioned the healing of Theoden, and this was something that Peter Jackson either misrepresented or misunderstood, possibly. He didn't literally heal the man. He allowed the man to come to his own healing because there was nothing really wrong with Theoden physically. There was everything wrong with him emotionally. He had been basically gaslit by Grima Wormtongue into believing that he's too old, too senile, too weak to do anything. And what does Gandalf do for him? He doesn't wave his staff around. He doesn't even make a rousing speech. He just says to the king, "Your fingers would remember their strength better if they grasped your sword."
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And the other thing, I believe that actually it wasn't so much Grima, but Grima was a daily vehicle for Saruman's voice, poisoning Theoden and the whole
Oh yeah,
household.
he was the conduit in that sense. Absolutely, he had been taught the art of destroying somebody's mind by the master of it.
And so I do think there was the one thing. I do think there was a direct battle between Gandalf and the power of Saruman's voice, and Gandalf using Narya in that battle as the spell was broken in the same scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to jump in and just, I feel like there's a little bit of a cloud in the air related to this person online's question about Smaug and Gandalf. Let's remember that there was a plan to go there and to get the ring. To get the Arkenstone. Gandalf had a plan, and he's a Maya. And I think maybe the magical spells that might have been the most effective would have been a couple that I can think of that are within Tolkien's works, which is a powerful sleep spell, or possibly even a mind control spell. Because remember, Smaug is not he's not a Maya. He is a mortal being.
He is a creature.
He's a creature, and he's got some magical enchantments that are part of his genetic footprint held over from the old days, which is true. But
Smaug's magic, I'm sorry to interrupt you, I'm agreeing with you actually. Smaug's magical ability is very similar to Saruman's magical ability, if we really stop to think about it.
It's similar, but I would say not quite as powerful.
He's not on Saruman's level, no way. But it's the sort of the charisma and also making people doubt, like he made Bilbo doubt Thorin was going to pay him, and all this stuff. And speaking of The Hobbit, I just thought of this. He leaves the party halfway through, lets Bilbo be the leader. Not even Thorin, but Bilbo, who has never been on an adventure before in his life. And he manipulates. Let's be real. Gandalf is an expert at he manipulated Bilbo into accepting 13 dwarves by having them arrive one or two at a time. He did the exact same thing to Bjorn.
Yeah.
Later on in the story, and I wonder if Bilbo ever realized, oh my God, this is what he did to me.
Well, I agree with you that he's got the power of voice in a low grade, same page mode of operandi kind of thing. I agree with that, but I want to just point out one thing here, and then I'll get off of this. But it's important to realize that if you're able to cast a sleep spell, which he can do, or mind control spell, given enough time and the right circumstances, Smaug is not going to make that. And then you're going to have the dwarves be able to come in, or even Gandalf himself, with mithril-tipped spears, Glamdring in hand, and Smaug's not going to make it
Orcrist.
past I'm sorry, Orcrist, right? and Smaug is not going to make it past midnight on that scenario. He's gonna be killed. And so that was the plan, and all the weapons to do it, and the magic to do it were all there.
There's a really fascinating question that came in from the chat that I have an answer, but I want Sid to answer it first.
Let me last thing on this.
Oh, sure.
First.
Go ahead.
I'm in a different kind of mood. I see Gandalf doing what he did against the Nazgul to save Faramir. He holds up his staff, he hits it with a blast of lightning, and he hits Smaug in that stupid open spot in his breast, and Smaug's literally toast.
Yeah, I agree with Sid, but the concern that he had, if we read Unfinished Tales, in doing that, in directly opposing the dragon, or even allowing the dwarves to go to war against the dragon, which was their original plan, was that Sauron would involve himself in the conflict to try to, buy Smaug's loyalty, and he didn't want that sort of thing to happen. And that's why the plot of The Hobbit happened. Okay, now, Muddle here from the chat, really fascinating question. Was there ever a time where Gandalf let someone else have control of their fate, and then they failed? Would that be Boromir, or is there anyone else who let him down? I want Sid to answer. My answer is that Boromir didn't fail. He was mortal like anyone else. He folded. Yeah, and Gandalf wasn't there at that moment. We have to remember. My answer would be Saruman. He told Saruman, "Come out and be free. Give me your staff and your key, and come out and be free, and go where you may, even if it's to Mordor." And Saruman cursed him and spat him and came to a bad end. But Sid, I thought this is a good reversal. I wanted your take on this.
I'm going to say Saruman was one of three, and it's interesting who the three are. Because Gandalf, in the parley before the Black Gate, said exactly the same thing even to Sauron. Come out, apologize, and walk away.
End this now.
And Sauron failed in that. And one more. Gollum. Through Frodo, Gollum was called to repentance, but he never repented. So, and this is according to Tolkien's letters, instead of repenting and biting the ring off Frodo's finger and taking it away to save Frodo's life, he did it as a selfish act and fell into the fire.
Yeah, that's 100%
correct.
And the pity and the mercy is so great from Frodo that he still forgives Gollum after that.
Absolutely. And because, and that comes back to, and the destiny of anyone's soul is between them and God, and who are we to damn someone that God might forgive?
Yeah, because you can't give life to someone who died. How could you give death to someone? And I mean, obviously, because some people say, well, he does fight in wars, he does kill people and such. And yeah, that's war. He's talking about executions and murder and this sort of thing. He was talking about the fact that Bilbo did not kill Gollum in cold blood when he had the opportunity. And Frodo's like, oh man, too bad he didn't do that. And and he's like, well, hold on, slow your roll there, little man. You're talking into some dangerous territory here. Now, Sid, we have about 9 minutes left here. I want to ask, what is on your list that we haven't touched on?
Okay.
I got a couple.
Okay, actually, Matt, go ahead.
Yeah. Let's do that for.
Let me do a couple, and when it jars your memory, Sid, jump in. Using the Palantir, he took it from Pippin, but he could have.
He knew to give it to Aragorn.
He did.
Aragorn.
Yeah. He didn't want to challenge Sauron. He didn't want to risk taking himself out of the end game of this chess.
Matt, I'm so happy. I forgot. I just wrote about this. He didn't tell Aragorn, use this. He just said, "Here, this is yours."
Yeah, exactly.
And that was 5 different things Gandalf did simply to say, it's time for you to be king when you decide.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing that he did also about giving. After Saruman's fall, he was Gandalf the White. He was the leader of the council, whatever it was at that particular point. He could have claimed Orthanc, and he didn't. He gave it to the rightful king.
Treebeard.
He gave it to Aragorn. gave it back to Numenor in one sense.
Yeah. And even Aragorn let Treebeard be in charge of it. It became the Tree Garth of Orthanc.
Yes,
You just
that's true.
reminded me, because you were talking about Minas Tirith. He could have healed Faramir. He could have healed Eowyn. He let Aragorn do it.
I disagree. I actually think that this was a point that showed the hands of the king are the hands of the healer. Elrond and now Aragorn actually had greater healing power than Gandalf.
That's very possible, but he did. My point is that he didn't make an attempt. He allowed the proper person who should do it to do it.
Absolutely agree. Did you have any more, Matt?
I find myself kind of on both sides of the fence on that one. I agree that it was the right timing for Aragorn to do it, and it was Aragorn's right to do it, or obligation to do it, or ethic to do it. I get that part. However, I don't believe that his general, what you might call his general healing footprint, if you want to call that, outweighed Gandalf the White. I think Gandalf the White, if required to, had a higher healing power at that point in general, is my point.
I think he could have done it.
We have to go back and read the text, because Gandalf was there in the houses of healing, and they were still dying.
Yeah,
that's my recollection.
That's 100%. And by the way, I mean, he did heal Gwei here, so he did have some great healing ability. But I do think Sid has a point that the greatest healer in Middle Earth was probably Elrond, actually, because that's what Gandalf actually said to be the case.
I don't know. I think the show sent all those guys over to Tom Bombadil's house. It'd have been
sing a merry song, and they would have been fine, right? Eat a bunch of bread and honey and everything.
Find out who the great healer is.
I wanted to. Chris, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You're not on camera. If you wanted to be on camera, you'd have to get closer to Sid.
Yeah, camera. I'm a mess.
Okay.
Gandalf could have taken over from Denethor or influenced him more when he was clearly going down the wrong path in a number of ways when they arrived in Minas Tirith. And he held off from doing so until it became absolutely necessary, because Denethor had gone off the deep end.
And when he did, he immediately passed it on to Imrahil as the rightful leader.
That's 100% true. He put Imrahil in charge.
And that's one of the reasons I just hate that scene in the movie so much, where Gandalf runs around whapping Denethor with his staff. That is just so gross.
It is gross. It's slightly cathartic because they made Denethor gross. But I agree 100% with Chris there. I had something in my head and now it's flown out of it. Oh darn.
Well, we're almost out of time, so I'd like to.
Well, you got 5 minutes. Good. Yeah. What's left on the list that we haven't covered?
I want to pick some very small ones.
Mm-hmm.
It is Sam who slices the hand of the Watcher at the end of its tentacle, and Sam saves Frodo from the Watcher at the gate.
Yeah.
Merry and Pippin freed themselves and each other from the orcs.
And by the way, I want to bounce off the Sam one. For anyone who might make the argument that he was closest, Boromir was closer.
Yeah. But I remembered it as Boromir doing it, but I went back and reread the book.
Yeah, Sam was the one that he rushed forward. He didn't even think about it. Yeah. He rushed forward. First time using his sword.
Yeah, and that is, I think, a foreshadowing of what Sam will become when he jumps into the and unable to swim to go through.
Yeah. And by the way, it's not explicitly spelled out, but Tolkien specifically mentions that as Sam is rushing forward with his sword to fight the Watcher in the water, he's cursing.
Yeah.
Let me get this up before I forget again. I remembered this. I'm going to give you guys a bit of trivia, and anybody who's watching this live, you'll know the answer to one of my upcoming quizzes on my channel. We know that Aragorn was the one who did the actual healing in the Houses of the Healing. But let's see if you two know. Whose voice was it that woke Eowyn up? There were a lot of people there that were present.
I don't remember. I remember the different images
I want
and
to say
how.
it was Faram. I want to say it was Faramir.
Now Faramir was still, he was in a different room. He was still sick.
He was still
It
sick.
was her brother Éomer, and Aragorn
Oh.
knew to do it. He put Éowyn's hand. He got her breathing under control, and then he put Éowyn's hand in her brother's and said, "Call out to her."
No.
Yeah. And that fits with the three visions that Aragorn induces through the Athalas: a vision of the Shire for Merry, a vision of Rohan and Éomer for Éowyn, and a vision of the wonders of Gondor for Faramir. He gave them back the visual beauty of their own life and soul. It's a beautiful passage to read.
Kits, I'll address your question between segments.
There's one really cool one, real quick, Sid.
Yeah.
And that is that he left the Undying Lands and left the big work. His mission was done. He left the big work to the men in the Fourth Age. So he prepared everything and left. I mean, maybe you were getting to that, but that was the only other one I had on my list.
Yeah. I'm going to add, since we were talking about the healing of Éowyn and Faramir, they weren't all the way healed when Aragorn left. They healed each other by falling in love.
Oh, that's 100% true. But that he was the one to wait, because he got her stable. She started breathing normally, and her color came back to her. But he was calling to Éowyn, and she wouldn't wake up. And then he said he had her brother call. He said, "Call to her," and he said, "Éowyn," and she came out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But come back to our central theme. That was Aragorn and not Gandalf.
100%.
So Gandalf passed that on.
He had great wisdom there.
The dwarves of Lonely Mountain and the men of Long Lake defended themselves against Sauron's armies with no help at all. Bree defended itself against Saruman's attack, and the Shire defeated Saruman's ruffians. And so we have all of these instances where people inspired by, or the way Faramir said, if I found the ring lying on the road, I wouldn't pick it up. And then says, and makes it clear he learned that from Gandalf.
Mm-hmm. He did.
And
he was the wizard's pupil.
Hey, the ring is right here. He keeps his word. That is Faramir as Gandalf's student, very clearly.
And in Sam's language, he proved his quality.
Yeah, and it's the quality of a student of Gandalf, totally saving the quest. Going back to Elrond's departing note as the nine were leaving, that you will meet both unexpected dangers and unexpected friends on the way. In a sense, that was a one-sentence description of the entire novel.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
I want to end giving everyone a different question to explore on your own time, and feel free to reach out to me.
I didn't even see it, by the way, but when I was asking that question, Joe Quake in the chat actually got it right and said Éomer. I didn't see that till now.
Oh, good.
So kudos.
There's only one more thing I know about Gandalf we haven't had time to talk about, and I just want to throw it out there for fun. Please, feel free to write me or post a question about it on Quora at sidkemp@quora.com. Or ask me to write fanfic at SidKemp on Archive of Our Own. But Gandalf has some fearsome powers. And so does Aragorn. Gandalf uses deception. Gandalf uses terror. He's riding with the flame of the sun at dawn, and the orcs and Dunlendings crumple while facing a much smaller show, and can't even hold their spear wall up against the fierce power of the sun. He has the power of command. This is a specific magical and biblical power.
And it's a capital C when he says it.
Yes. Your ring is broken. Your staff is broken.
Even before that, come back, Saruman. I'm not finished. And what happened? He came crawling back.
There, I would say that's the next one.
Yeah.
I believe that Gandalf the White had fully been given a power Gandalf the Grey did not have very much of. The full power of Saruman's voice, or even
It was the authority of the
Saruman
white.
when he
Yeah.
was Anatar. He has the utter authority of persuasion in his voice. And those are
And
darn scary.
he doesn't overuse it.
He doesn't overuse
Oh,
anything.
I just thought of one. We're out of time. We're just extending this just for fun. I just thought of one, and this is not an example of him letting someone else do the thing, but this is an example of him using the least amount of force possible. In The Hobbit, he could have walked into that clearing and wiped out those trolls, but instead he sat there behind a rock making funny voices and kept them arguing until the sun rose.
So, and again, and that's an example of deception as a power.
Absolutely.
He just kept them talking. The sun killed them.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to add something really quick to that. This is like the choice between, look, am I going to use the methods of the enemy or the methods of nature and the nature of
Iluvatar.
trolls? Yeah, the nature of Iluvatar and the nature of trolls as they are made of this composite material. What's the choice here? The choice is to do least harm and still achieve the same thing. Were the trolls destroyed? Yes. But
We could make the argument that he let Aryan destroy them.
Or that he let them destroy themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
They should know. They should have said,
victim,
"Hey, look."
They even brought it up in their conversation. They even said the sun's going to come up soon, But he kept them arguing. He kept them angry at each other.
Yeah. So my point is just when you can let Morgoth's curse on the trolls run its course, that will be their end. And they consistently, in Tolkien's works, these choices consistently devolve to the same effect in the end, but by means that are what you might call aggressively passive.
I would call them understanding eucatastrophe. Give everyone the chance to redeem themselves until the very, very end, when they face their destiny and they choose.
Yeah,
100%.
And that is Tolkien's message to all of us. And people mentioned earlier, I just want to wrap this up because people did ask about it. There are times that Gandalf kills, and the times are very specific. One, simply in battle. Someone is trying to kill you or someone, and they are totally fighting and there's no other way to stop them. And two is against certain enemies who are irredeemable.
The Balrog.
The Balrogs fell with Morgoth, remained bound to Morgoth, and there was no hope of salvation for a Balrog. And that was explicit concept, and so it's a special case.
And going over to the chat, because it was asked, it was just declared that he also used a word of command in Moria that you just slightly wrong here. You said that his word of command broke the door and ceiling of the chamber of Mazarbul. His word of command didn't cause that. It was the fact that it was countered by the Balrog, because the Balrog is equal to him in power, and that's why he didn't know what hit it. He was trying to use the word of command to close a door, and then something that was equal to him used a word of command, well, probably not a word, but used magic to open the door, and that it caused an explosion, and that's why he said, I have met my match, and I have nearly been destroyed.
I've actually always pictured it as the Balrog using a word of command. Of it being a complete...
John's right. It was the static an unstabling of the lock from the two forces being applied on it. And that's correct. That's my read.
And since we're done with this category, I will go back and answer Kit's. Kit's wanted us to talk about swear words in Middle-earth. There were a few, we can't use a lot of swear words here, but there are a few instances of the characters cursing, and usually the way that Tolkien writes it is he cursed and spat, or he ran forward cursing, or he cursed under his breath. My interpretation of the way that Tolkien specifically would answer that question, what sort of curse words he would say, well, they don't exactly translate, so that's why I wasn't specific.
I still like Dung
John,
Ho Rat.
Yeah.
John, you and I should sit down and write up a list of Hobbit curses just for the.
I know a few Elvish ones too, by the way.
That would be a good topic for the next show. Let's do it.
Yeah, I know a few
Well,
well, yeah. Well, as long as we don't get demonetized or anything, but yeah. But there is absolutely some what we might call lower languages. It's just that when he really wants you to use your imagination to what the characters are saying, he's unspecific about it. Yeah. Pippin calls. Actually, he didn't call him an old ass. That was what Frodo called Sam. That Pippin called Merry my dear ass is what he said in the Houses of the Healing, which is one of my favorite moments. My two funniest moments both have to do with Merry, funnily enough. The other was when he razzed Frodo really good. But anyway, that's that first topic. Really great stuff, Sid.
Thank you. And
really great stuff.
I've been 5 months.
Yep.
Sharing. Thank you all for joining me in the fun. Keep growing.
Okay, so we're going to set it for another 2-minute summary because now Matt has something that he wants to talk about. And this is also going to be sort of a continuation of last month of a discussion that I had. And now we're going to go over to Matt's take on it. So go ahead, Matt.
Well, we were talking about Legolas last month, and we made a comment, and someone made a comment in the comment section about, hey, let's talk about, what can he actually do? Like, what are his abilities, possibly his magic abilities, his physical abilities? And we all kind of thought at the time that was a good idea, and I actually wrote an article on this. It is dated February 23rd. Yeah, February 23rd, and it's it's got some debatable points, but I don't think it's too far off. And the question that I'm going to deal with today is, I'm not really trying to look for people to necessarily agree with me, but I am looking for what we might call some friendly consensus on some of this. But the idea here is basically this. He's not human. He's more balanced, more experienced. He's stronger than a human male is in almost every way. And the question then is, how do the passages about what he can do match up with what I would call the appropriate amplification? Is it 1.1 times more powerful than a man? Is it 1.2, 1.3? 1.5 is crazy if you think about strength and speed and all those kind of things. You just simply use a calculator for that kind of thing. But it does help to get us to an idea, I think, on what fits with the description from Tolkien, using that as a guide. He, a lot of people think he doesn't give very much description, and he does actually a lot in many, many ways. And if you know enough of the material, you can actually get 4 or 5 things put together to the degree that you can make some very close estimations. Yeah. And so we're going to be looking at that in my section today. And I'm going to start off by just giving some general estimations for that, and then we'll proceed with the other comments from you guys and from my colleagues here.
Okay, so let's set that to a half hour here, and we're going to go ahead. And I know the first thing that we all want to talk about, and when we talked about this earlier, Sid brought it up, is he walks on snow without sinking down into it. Or at least in one instance, he does this.
I want to run on this one because actually I'm going to challenge Matt's whole approach. I agree in terms of strength and speed and such, do your multiples. But I want to argue, and John said, well, maybe he wasn't doing, it's just what Frodo thought he was doing. I'm going to take the totally opposite view in terms of running on snow. I'm going to suggest that Tolkien was writing explanations of the nature of each race. And he wanted to contrast Gimli, who lived, his family lived under the mountain they were on top of, a being of earth, and elves beings of light and air, and he literally meant that Legolas could lighten his body and run barefoot on snow without leaving, I don't know if he's barefoot, but light shoes on snow without leaving a mark. And this is something elves can do. And I want to not mitigate that at all and then see it as magical. And as we were discussing this right before we all turned on to the show, I had a hilarious thought. I want to propose that Legolas had never seen deep snow before. He lived in poisoned Mirkwood under incredibly thick trees. And yeah, sure, there were winters, but they were mushy and ucky and ugly and brown, and the water was poisoned. I think he just lit up with sheer joy seeing snow and jumped onto it, discovered he could run. So on other topics, Matt, I'll be happy to discuss multiples, but I'm going to suggest in terms of running on snow, Legolas had a completely different nature as an elf, and that's what Tolkien was expressing in writing that passage.
Let me read that passage real quick, because this is something that a lot of people, I think, they're filling in some blanks with their imagination, or they're remembering it wrong. Tolkien did not write that he did not leave any prints in the snow. This is exactly what he wrote. With that he sprang forth nimbly, and then Frodo noticed, as if for the first time, though he had long known it, that the elf had no boots, but wore only light shoes, as he always did, and his feet made little imprint in the snow. Little imprint is not no imprint. And
agreed.
We have
to correct.
Yeah, we have to understand that this is freshly fallen snow. This storm was all of a sudden. And this is why I argue that little imprint in the snow is also a little bit of Frodo's own perspective, because he's really noticing Legolas as a person for the first time, and not just somebody that's just there in the background. And this is the first time that Legolas is speaking to Frodo. He sort of makes a joke, and then he talks to Gandalf, and he makes a joke to Gandalf, and then he runs off. And we're seeing the different abilities of the different races, where Boromir and Aragorn are being snowplows. They're just tearing at the snow with their hands, and it's chest high. And when we think about how tall Aragorn is, for the snow to be chest high, this is a lot of snow. But it's probably a light, powdery snow that had just come down. Now, the storm stopped as soon as they decided that they were not going to use the Pass of Caradhras. Once they turned around, it was no longer snowing. However, I'm sure that as they were on a mountain, there was still a lot of that light powder coming off of the actual mountain and rolling downhill. And that's probably why Frodo didn't see footprints all that much. He was leaving little input because this is all still in motion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to suggest a possibility. We know there was that icy wall as the last thing Boromir broke through. It is possible that the whole storm ended in sleet, and that all that light powder.
That is possible. Yes, that is very possible.
Okay. So let's tackle this stuff, because you're kind of a little bit ahead of where I'm going to address.
Wait, Matt, before you do, let me just address the chat. No, elves don't have hollow bones. Elves are physically not any different from men. They're spiritually different. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah. So it's also not just taking anything away from either one of you said, because I actually agree with it in general. In like 80%, 90% of it. It's also true that Frodo had not seen any elf before until he met Legolas.
Well, he had met Gildor.
He met Gildor, but he didn't have a chance to see him in action.
No,
was my point.
It was for a few hours.
So right, exactly. They were seated.
But
they were talking.
He did spend 6 weeks in Rivendell.
Well, I know, but you didn't. My point, John, is that he didn't get a chance to see Gildor in action as he was able to see Legolas in action during the course of their fellowship.
He saw Glorfindel in action.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway,
I'm
the
just saying
point is,
that's like the
he saw.
elfiest elf to ever elf.
I know that, but I'm
Yeah.
talking about this particular case related to snow. I don't want to get bogged down on this because I'm
No, I
going
understand.
someplace
Go
in
ahead.
my section that will deal with
We
some
don't
of
want
this,
you
but
to talk about snow either.
it's kind of a little bit out of order. So now I'm gonna address where we are right now, which is I think this is generally true. He also probably was 70 to 80 pounds lighter than any man that he's ever seen, and the hobbits did have dealings with men, and men were generally heavier. Now, is it also true that elves have a better um, uh, sense of abilities in their balance, better sense of footing, where to place their feet, where not to? That makes them more gentle and nimble than the way that men are, especially with their increased weight. I think that's also true. I also think what's at work here is a little bit of a perspective, in the shock difference between what they're used to seeing and what Legolas is able to do. So I would give it, little bit of sprinkling of hyperbole from the Hobbit's perspective, but also yes, there is something enchanted about his abilities, his footing, his foot placement, his choice of placement that is natural to elves, whether they're on snow or not,
He's not
that they
thinking
would
about it.
have.
He's just doing it.
Exactly. He's just doing. Now, this makes sense. He's been on Middle Earth now for 30 to about 30, almost 300, 3,300 years. So if you're an elf and
Complete
you're
estimate. We
enchanted,
covered that last month.
yes, it's an
Just,
estimate.
I'm
We're
just
not
saying,
off.
for anybody
Yeah,
who's interested in how we got to that, we'll say range, last month's episode.
yeah, exactly. Now we're not far off by, honestly, by
I
maybe
think we're
50 to
very
60
close.
years.
I think we're
We're very
really
close.
close. Yeah.
So the point is we're talking about 3,200 years on Earth. He's enchanted. He's lighter than men. And I think all of
I
this is a composite tapestry of what he actually can do that is magic, but also experience oriented for an elf altogether.
Let me address something that you said, Matt, and then Sid is also raising his hand, so we'll go to him after. I don't think that Legolas is lighter than a man who would have been the same height and build as him. He's lighter than Aragorn, because Aragorn's
Yeah.
huge. However, when we talk about
Boromir.
weight, we also have to talk... Yeah, Boromir's big too. We have to talk about gear. Aragorn and Boromir are very weighted down. They have big, thick, heavy boots.
That's
They're
true.
armored. Boromir is carrying this huge shield. And,
Yeah.
but then if I think of somebody who's 9 feet tall, like Thingol from the first age, he probably weighed like 300 pounds of pure muscle.
At least.
So I don't think that, like, elves are not like fairies, or they're sort of like very like, oh, I just sort of like glide around. And I want to address that you're right about one thing, and I think you're super, super right about one thing, is that through his own instinct of just being an elf and being in harmony with nature and understanding on a level that he's not even aware of how these things work, he knows where to put his feet, and he's going very quickly. He's wearing light shoes, as Frodo describes. He probably doesn't have armor on because he's not somebody who takes a hit. He's somebody who dodges a hit. Or he's somebody that snipes from a really far away, you know what I mean? Even his weapons or his knives are described as being very long. He's not Glorfindel, who will get right up and wrestle with a Balrog. And that's not indicative of all elves. That's indicative of the very noble Sindar elves of Lothlorien, and who were, originally from Doriath. But we also have to remember that he's not on this main narrow path that Aragorn is, and that Boromir are plowing this main path. So 2 things to consider. He's off to the side, probably a little bit up on the actual mountain wall where he's running. And 2 is, when we think of a snowplow, and just imagine Aragorn just furiously tearing down the snow with his hands, Boromir using his shield as a plow, there's going to be that runoff on both sides. One is probably, cascading down into the abyss, and the other is piled up. So, it's probably, he's more running on the mountain than anything.
Yeah.
which
And
is impressive as hell, by the way.
well, it does, but it goes back to how much of an imprint he made. If he knows instinctively, being an elf,
Yeah.
that the side angle of a mountain has a little bit less snow on it, and that's going to give me better grip. Somebody who is not in that kind of weather or has that kind of sense of balance or anything like that is going to be amazed that Legolas was able to figure out that pathway where the men were not able to do that, and it left a less imprint in the snow because there was less snow.
Mm-hmm.
Simply just less snow.
And he's not wearing
And
boots.
and he's not wearing boots, and he's lighter. He's definitely lighter by weight, I think.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he's also lighter by
I just wanted to
armor.
address that he he's not
agree
armed.
with
He's
you.
got light clothes on. He's probably not
Yeah.
really dressed for winter.
But I want to go back to what Sid said. Sid is also correct. This is not a regular lightweight, skilled 3200
Yes, Maddie,
year
that's
old elf.
correct.
He has an enchanted nature to him, a magical enchanted nature to him, gifted to him in his being that Sid is getting at, and I think that's also part of the equation here. And so all things can exist equally at the same time, and everyone can still be right.
And I think his words that he said prior to the passage that I read out, is Tolkien's way of saying all the races have their different ways of dealing with this. Gimli's instinct is to light a fire. Boromir and Aragorn's instinct is to just push through it. Legolas's instinct is just avoid it. And the hobbits are just miserable because they're usually inside with hot cocoa when it's snowing.
Yeah.
Now Sid has had something to say. We're going to go to Sid now.
I want to honor what John just said, because I think this was a major event to show what the members of the Fellowship were like, psychologically and in terms of their powers. And I think that influenced Tolkien's writing.
And that's, by the way, what the chat is saying too, that it's the wonders of the elves is a narrative hook still at this point. But go ahead.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Matt used the phrase the magical enchanted nature, and this reflects back to something that also came up around Galadriel, which he says, I don't know what you mean by magic. You use the same word for what Sauron does and what we elves do.
The deceits of the enemy. Yeah.
The reason that elves can't understand human notions of magic is because magic is totally natural to them. So the idea of natural magic is not what we do, it's what we are, is central to understanding elves. On the other hand, I want to agree with Matt, and I've come up with some numbers. You talked about, John, placing his feet well. Let's call that being nimble and having dexterity. So dexterity with the hands, nimble on the feet.
Perception as well.
No, that would be separate.
Okay.
But physically nimble skills, I'm going to get my multiplier is 1.5, really high. Speed, I think just a 1.1, little bit faster. And if you wanted to add in, what was it you just mentioned?
Be nice, Maddie. I'm sorry, Sid. You're being goofed on for pronunciation.
Whose name am I?
Sauron.
Sauron? Isn't that what I said?
When you say it, it comes off a little bit like Sauron.
Oh yeah,
but that's just you're speaking you're speaking quickly and you have that Florida twang. I mean, what can we say?
Yeah, that's true.
Now, when I said nimbles and dexterity, John, you mentioned something else.
Perception was what I said. Yeah.
Perception. Oh,
or spatial awareness might be the word we're looking for. Actually, what? Maybe what I meant to say was spatial awareness.
Spatial awareness, a 1.1, but then also remember his hearing. And when they're and his ability to see the orcs even better than Aragorn can. When they're chasing after Merry and Pippin, that would be more like a 1.2.
I seem to remember that they were sort of like equal in that scene.
Yeah, no, I think
That
hearing.
he
Aragorn
he
hears
was
the ground
hearing
is-
and Aragorn was looking.
No, it's the other way around.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah. Aragorn put his ear to the ground.
That's right.
And
He
said,
did the old indigenous trick, yeah.
But twice at least, Aragorn turns to Legolas and says, "What do you see?" And where Aragorn sees clearly a running crowd of orcs, Legolas can describe each one.
He could tell you how many they are. He could tell you what they're wearing. He can tell you what their armor looks like.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So let me re-interject for my section here, because this is where I really want to go with this. I just added up everything that he just said, and I agree with this general. I had a different way of calculating it, but I was trying to fit the passages, and I do research like you guys do. We look at the passages. What kind does this feel like? And Sid gave 1.2, 1.1, 1.1, 1.5. Okay, let's just use that. I'm not trying to make this about numbers. I'm just trying to get a general sense. But all of this averages out to 1.22. Now, in this article I wrote, which is where I want to go with this, I actually settled on 1.2. And I think it's interesting that Sid came up with 1.22 on his averages. Now, John, you're going to get your chance here after I'm done, but I went through and did my typical research on what this would look like as far as abilities at the 1.2 amplification over the average, a good in shape human male. And here's what we come out to. Related to vision, as you were just talking about, he's going to be able to see at night, and the equivalent of a 1.2 amplification to eyesight means that his vision is a 25. Not 20 over 10, but 20 over 5. That kind of vision is crazy vision.
He would have incredible night vision from being in
Yes.
Mirkwood as well.
And people who have 25 are very, very, very rare on the planet, and they can see at night, and they can see things out to 10 miles very clearly.
Yeah.
And that's actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because we have to and I have to make sure that everybody in the chat and everybody who is going to watch this later as a video understands that we are not saying that elves are always going to be stronger than men, because that's not the case. What we have to understand is that Legolas, as a kinsman of Ilúthingol, as the son of Thranduil, king of the Woodland Realm, is above average as an elf.
Exactly. Thank you, John. Now let me get to the rest of this list. My calculation is based on his age, approximate for an elf, is that he'd be able to, at 1.2 amplification, that he'd be able to bench press 360 pounds. Now, can Aragorn bench press something like that or more? Probably. That's your point, John. I agree with you. But 360 is not kidding around. The average squat at this amplification for him would be 480. His deadlift, let me go through the numbers real quick.
Go ahead. Yeah.
The deadlift would be 540. The 40-yard dash time for him is 3.5 at the same amplification of 1.2. His marathon would be 1 hour and 41 minutes, which beats the record by about 20 seconds. His 100 freestyle swim, and we know they can swim.
The marathon, by the way, Aragorn and Gimli would be right there with him on that.
I'm not doubting that. The 100-meter freestyle would be 39 seconds for him, and the human record is 46.9. His 100-meter dash would be 7.98 as opposed to 9.58. Long jump 35. The record is 29.4.
Okay.
You get the idea of these kind of amplifications, and I wanted to show what this generalistic power amplification would be for an elf. He's able to do things. In fact, this article ends with proof that he would have been able to shoot arrows at 3 or 4 arrows in the span of 5 or 6 seconds at that same kind of quickness.
And there are people who can do that too, and that's important to understand. Now, I want to address Chris in the chat. Said that Gandalf asks Legolas what you can see with your fine elf eyes as they approach Edoras. Very true, but I also want to say that slightly before that, Gandalf was able to see Frodo and Sam. So it's not like he's relying on Legolas to see for him. He's just saying, what do you see? He wants him to look, in other words.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you mentioned the bench pressing thing, and it reminded me of this lovely little cartoon that I saw on the internet of these two characters, one of which was an elf and one of which was a dwarf. And they looked, like very stylized versions of Gimli and Legolas, and might have been based on that sort of dynamic and that sort of friendship, and they were lifting weights. And the dwarf was able to lift some very heavy weights because he's very, very powerful and strong. And then the elf is lifting a very much larger, much more impressive looking weight, very easily with one hand. And the dwarf tries it and he says, but this is actually very light. It doesn't weigh anything at all. Why? It's supposed to be heavy. And the elf says, well, if it's heavy, wouldn't that make it hard to lift? And the dwarf just sits there thinking like he's having an existential crisis at that point, like his whole world just shattered. And we have to understand that this is whoever made this cartoon. I don't know who it was, but shout out to whoever made it, because they actually understand the dwarf elf thing better than most people do, because this is how elves work. They don't make things difficult for themselves. Everything that they do is in concert with their natural abilities. So if they're lifting a weight, why would I make it heavy and difficult to lift? Then you can't carry it around, you know what I mean? So everything about them, when Sam asks, is this a magic rope? They say, we don't know what you mean. It's a very nice rope. It's very finely made. Of course it's a magic rope. We find that out later. It has absolute powers. Gollum can't even touch it because it's so magical.
And it's obedient, which is unusual.
Yes.
For
Yes. Oh, ropes are not. They don't take orders very well. They just sit there,
Well, if they comply naturally with the will of their designated owner, in this harmonious sense of the music of the Ainulindala thing, the rope is going to be your partner. You're going to give it a little thing, and the rope is going to magically sense, I'm trying to be loosened, so I'm going to loosen. I'm going to behave, I'm going to, it's in harmony with the user. And that actually is all in, continuity with the way Tolkien writes these things. And that's what's so brilliant about it, really, because everything fits into this kind of way of harmony, in a sense.
And Tolkien gives himself and the reader a little bit of plausible deniability with the magic rope, because Frodo's instinct is, you must not have tied it very well, Sam. And Sam, of course, is massively offended by that.
Well, they have no understanding of the rope at all, obviously.
Yeah.
I think Sam is right in this one.
He's absolutely right.
Because, again, I think that natural magic says the creator of something can tell that thing what to do. In other words, it's not just natural, it's also the magic inherited as children of the creator of the universe.
And to answer the question that came in chat, the rope isn't sentient, the rope isn't sapient. The rope is doing what it was designed to do. You design something a certain way, and it does that. We don't understand how it works. That's what makes it magic.
Yeah.
I actually have a theory in our world. What if electrons obey the laws of physics because they're not disobedient to God, and God wrote the laws of physics?
Bingo.
We see it.
I love that.
There's
the gold star comment of the night right there.
Yeah, it really is.
None
can alter the music in my despite.
That's right. It's perfect. It's so good. Night's over. I'm out of here.
Call it a day, guys. We don't even have to do my segment. No, we're going to do it. We still got 5 minutes left, by the way.
Well, I need a couple minutes at the end. So
okay.
I do have two short thoughts on things already said. Matt, I wouldn't use the average multiples. I would keep it to, dexterity and nimbleness 1.5, speed only 1.1, and I would play around with keeping it just to highlight the differences between the races.
Between these specific characters, that's what's important to note. Because if you're comparing Legolas to an average man, it's going to be higher than these numbers that you're talking about. If you're comparing him to Boromir, it's going to be these numbers you're talking about.
No, I based it on the strongest 16-year-old males in the world.
Oh, so you're
Gotcha.
talking about
Strongest,
real life
Yeah, see,
people? Okay.
elite,
Yeah.
See, I think
pretty elite.
I think you're
Really,
I think you're underestimating Legolas then, because he's thousands of years old and he's had a lot of practice at a lot of these things. And I think that when we talk about Tolkien's sort of law of diminishment, we're in the 6th or 7th age. We're not like the men of the 3rd age or the 4th age, who were not anything like the men of the 1st age, like Beren or Barahir or Tur or Hurin or Turin. They were so ridiculously mighty. They would be like gods to us. They would be like Superman, you know.
No, I know, but even at my amplification, which is consistent in how I'm doing it, is 1.2. His 100-meter dash is 7.9. I mean, so my point is he is not under amplified. In my opinion, he's about accurate. But I want to talk about a couple other things that are kind of funny the audience might really love to hear.
I really wanted to say something on the topic already.
Okay, go ahead, Sid. Go ahead.
And this is going to be fun because it's controversial.
Oh no.
Take all that is saying, or I'm saying, use the either system of multiplication. How much better are elves at parkour than humans?
It's fair.
Wait, fair. Are we comparing them to the people that are doing parkour, or are they comparing them to me?
I'm talking about comparing the best parkour in the world.
Yeah,
by human.
They would be.
Legolas is going to be great.
Yeah.
Fourth time, let me finish my question, please.
Oh.
And what does this say about Legolas's depiction of utterly ridiculous arrow shooting parkour in the movies? Is that a little bit more acceptable now, or is it still just so ridiculously over the top that way we find it awful, which is the way I've always thought? I really say evaluate the movie, but this is one where I'd like us to do it.
I think it was.
Go ahead, John.
I think it was over the top in the way that it was filmed. I think, and I think that the reliance on certain special effects made it look unnatural when it really should just look like peak performance.
I would agree with that, and I think some things were done inaccurately, like the barrel riding scene in.
That was awful.
And it was awful.
Yeah.
However, it was very accurate in most of the Lord of the Rings. When he would appear on the scene, and string his bow and shoot at 3 or 4 targets within 4 or 5 seconds. That is accurate. Yeah. He would have been very accurate. He would not have missed. And and using his arrow as a stabbing weapon at close range, these kind of so-called parkour maneuvers, I find realistic. I think that I think Jackson and his team did a very good job most of the time in approximating what this kind of speed would look like, this kind of proficiency would look like. And so I'm generally on board with most of it. And I think this little exercise today actually solidifies this as actually more so good research as opposed to Hollywood doing stupid stuff, in my opinion.
And the Hollywood thing, and it just bouncing off what I had said about how it looked unnatural, even, Christopher Tolkien's reaction to Legolas on screen was that he said he was Spider-Man. They turned Legolas into Spider-Man, and they made him a little bit too unnatural in terms of his actual agility and such, when it really should be peak performance. So we really, if you're going to film like something like Legolas, it should be less Spider-Man. It should be more like a Captain America, so just a peak human.
Well, I'm on the bandwagon for peak performance plus, because there's an age,
plus thousands of years of experience. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So it's peak performance, yes, but it's actually should appear in the movie to be, now wait a second, that's a little bit beyond peak performance without it being stupid.
I
And
was
so
just
that
talking about
to me
just
is
the
no, yeah,
visual of like the fluidity of the movement. I mean, we also have to look at that. This is the lens that this movie came out in the early 2000s. You know what I
mhm.
mean? And they were
Yeah,
trying to do as much as they could with practical effects. But when you look at The Hobbit and you see him bouncing around like Super Mario, it's beyond the pale ridiculous.
I
Yeah,
agree
I
with that
I was
sometimes.
2001 though. I mean, I'm not remembering the specific. I'll have to go back and watch it. But in the battles, especially Battle of Pelennor Fields, Legolas is racing along and sliding down the tails of monsters and flying
Yeah.
through the arrow. The arrow shooting, I got no problem with. Okay, but the surfing on top of enemy creatures got to
Yeah.
me really ridiculous.
Because you question, why does he need to do that?
And
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Let
my problem with that is I think the purpose was to sell tickets
Hmm.
to the parkour generation.
Oh, 100%. That's exactly what, paraphrase, exactly what Christopher Tolkien said.
Yeah.
He said it was made to sell tickets to, young boys 15 to 25 years old.
Mhm.
and let's not throw. I agree with that, but let's not throw too much of the baby out with the bathwater here. I agree that Christopher and what you guys are saying is true in maybe 20% of the scenes, and those are the worst offenders. I agree with that. But let's not dismiss the fact that about 70 to 80% of the scenes related to Legolas's ability fit within
Yes, Mr. Rippus.
what Tolkien has described, fit within this rough 1.2 amplification kind of
High
thing,
wing.
and we're not too far off on how the rest of how he was portrayed was accurate. And I think that's important for people to come away with here. And I want to end with one other thing. Um,
Before you do, Matt, I
yeah,
just got to say that makes it hurt more, by the way. When they
what?
get it right so often, it hurts so much when they get it wrong.
Well, I agree with you there,
Yeah.
because they're onto it, and then they get
Yeah.
crazy, and someone
It's sort of
has
like,
a brilliant idea. Yeah,
and
I know.
that's like
I get you.
The Hobbit trilogy in general. Like if it was just bad all the way through, I wouldn't really talk about it that much. But when they get a scene like the dwarves singing in Bag End, and it's so beautiful and so Tolkienish and so perfect, and you're like, why isn't the rest of the movie like that?
Yeah, oh, I agree with you totally. But we're professionals here. I mean, we're professionals in a way. We have to call it as accurately as we can, even when it's right. And I think a lot of people kind of come away with that being just Hollywood when they don't realize, no, Legolas is a serious dude. It's a
Yeah.
serious abilities, and I think it's important to call out. Now, I want to end on a funny note and a true note. I did some research on this, a little bit more on this than other parts
Wait a
of my
minute. Wait a minute. Hold on.
my.
You doing research?
I know, but I want I figured out and did some online research related to the beer drinking scenes for Legolas, and it comes out to inebriation is usually somewhere between zero point zero 0.08 and zero point 0.1, and with a 1.2% better functioning liver and immune system for the human body, an elven
Mhm.
body, he would have been able to drink 18 to 22 beers by this calculation and feel almost nothing. And
Especially if you go back to The Hobbit and you realize, what do
uh-huh,
these elves do in Mirkwood? They sit around eating
yeah,
and drinking wine all day.
yeah, it's not 1.2 or 1.3. We can argue, what
Yeah.
it's not 1.2 number of beers. It's 1.2 exponentially for a higher functioning liver, and the movies actually caught that accurately. They did.
Yeah.
So,
I'm actually working on a fanfic about that. What if Legolas was the overseer of the wine steward who let the
No,
orbs?
I love that idea. I love that idea. And by the way, my issue with that drinking scene has nothing to do with Legolas. It has everything to do with Gimli, because Gimli wouldn't be the sloppy, belching drunk that he was in the film. They basically made him like Ogren from Dragon Age, who's this sort of like
if
filthy
you
little, vulgar dwarf that
well,
drinks himself
that's
stupid. And in the
yeah.
reality is that, no, he wouldn't have been belching and falling over. He would have been standing on the table singing a song.
Well, yes, but if he was trying to keep up with Legolas at 18 to 22, so it might have been,
I don't know.
he
I
might
mean,
have had a little.
The dwarves were made by Aule, and they were made to be strong. They're built. They're literally built different.
Oh, I know.
Sid.
I'm just saying.
We're out of time. We're out of time for this, but go ahead, Sid. We're having fun.
I'm glad we're out of time because being a human version 1.0, I need a bio break.
Oh, you know what? I also need a bit of a bio break. So let's, not a dwarf fortress dwarf, exactly, Moogle. I'm gonna put up the respite screen here, and we'll take just like a 2-minute break here. We'll be right back, folks. Matt,
does that mean
keep
I'm
your
not
ruler
doing nothing?
away while I'm gone.
Can they hear me, or should I shut up?
Keep talking.
Oh, am I? Okay, I'm going to keep going. Hey, for any of you who are curious about any more of the numbers, I will tell you that he calculated shot put 92 feet. The record is 77. High jump 9.7. Record is 8 foot. 400-meter dash 35 seconds. The record is 43. Discus throw 297. Record is 247. Pole vault 24 feet and 7 inches, and the record is 20 feet 6 inches. Javelin throw 387. Record is 323. You got the idea. What else did I have here? Oh, how many orcs could Legolas technically kill with this kind of an advantage in amplification of speed, awareness, lethality, his 3,200-year age, and all that? And I just ran some numbers on that too. For those of you who don't know, I'm a math physics guy. I think he probably could defeat 30 to 35 regular type orcs in a single sustained melee engagement.
I'm back
before the sheer volume of bodies might overcome him. But I think they kind of captured that accurately too. He's difficult to get a grip on and to get hits on, if you want to call it that way. And so there is the end of my section, and maybe my co-hosts are back. I don't know.
I'm back. Sid's not back.
Okay.
I just address a few things from the chat. Basic Quake Ranger bringing up the fact that the wine put the chief jailer down and allowed for the keys to get stolen. And you have to stop and think, how strong was that wine?
How much of that wine?
Yeah, well, he had been sitting there drinking for quite a while before he passed out, so there is that as well. Mr. Rippus brings up an interesting point now, because you have talked, Matt, about this extremely. Here, I'm gonna, even though Sid's not back, I'm gonna put the screen back so that they can see you. You've talked about the speed of Balrogs, and I know you sort of consulted with me about this, and we sort of pretty much agree on it. But Mr. Rippus says, in a universe where Thingol and Melian can stare at each other for centuries, isn't it possible that Ungoliant had Morgoth pinned down for several days, thus making the Balrog's speed slower?
No, because the narrative Tolkien uses is relatively specific, and that is the narrative flow is that he was at the point of his own death throes and needed immediate help. Yeah. He was bound and he needed immediate. Now, with Thingol, the tone of the narrative is that it might have been hyperbole also, by the way, a poetic hyperbole. Yeah.
But also, and Melian's own power as an angel.
And yeah, the time may have slowed because of her presence. This is a couple of enchanted magnets, together, probably warping the space-time continuum for all we know. So these are not the same kind of narratives going on in actual, author descriptions. And John and I had a conversation about this a while ago. We kind of came out with the idea, John, wasn't it? We kind of felt like the narrative description was 5 to 10 minute range. Yeah, before the Balrogs kind of got there.
And to address Mr. Rippus, two things can be true. They could have fought for days, but in that moment that he screamed out like that because he was in fear of his own death and he was close to actually being destroyed, there was a very short period of time for the Balrogs to actually pass over Hithlum and get to them. So even it's not about how long he struggled with Ungoliant, but for when he actually sent out that scream.
So the thought on that in conclusion is that, and John can cut in, but the thought on that was that if you've got 5 to 10 minutes and he's a physical being who can know his own so-called death
And he was
coming to
at this
him,
point. He was incarnate at this point.
and he was feeling his death pains, that's why he called out for immediate help. Then when you're talking about 5 to 10 minutes, 15 minutes ish, pushing it, you're talking about speeds across Hithlum that are. It says the distance is 175 miles. It's a plain math fact on the map. And if you're covering that speed and those distances, you're talking about crazy speeds. If you're talking about 5 minute, 10 minute, 15 minutes. Now, how's that possible? These are fire demons. These are Maya. They are not basic power demons. They are very powerful. And if that's one of the only powers they have, might be very specialized as far as fire demons are concerned, speed might be number one. And the passage says that they passed across Hithlum as tempests of fire, end quote. So we kind of read something into that altogether, and they're moving at great speeds.
And it's an incredibly important passage because it answers the question of why the Fellowship could not run away from the Balrog. There's no running away. Sid, you had something to say about that?
I just want to add a number based on 5 minutes and 175 miles. We're talking on the order of 1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, there's a sonic boom involved in the arrival of the Balrogs.
Another thing, don't forget that Balrogs, this particular Balrog, Durin's Bane, would have had no problem dealing with the sunlight. There is no barrier to him waiting for the night to come out. He would have walked out without no problem at all,
especially
just like
since
the old days.
The sun is the same sort of creature that he is. I mean, exactly. Aryan is a spirit of flame, just as the Balrog. She's just not evil.
Yeah, he would have come out of there looking for those guys to hunt them down. He would have found the ring probably on one of them, obviously, but he would have started hacking and smacking, and those guys, that group would have never made it to the woods. It'd have been over with. So anyway,
shout out to my boy Boromir, who actually stopped the Balrog dead in his tracks for half a moment. It's impressive. That horn
the horn thing is so crazy. Yeah.
It probably reminded him of Orama's horn. That same I agree. Epic blast,
You had a weird flashback.
The Valaroma. Because he would have heard it. He would have heard it in the pits of Utumno when Melkor, the most powerful being in the world, was cowering like a lost puppy, hearing Tulkas's booming laughter and the blasts of the Valaroma horn. It's just,
Well, yeah, I agree with that. He was also having probably some PTSD from the War of Wrath.
100%.
I mean, think about the horns are coming across, that part of the world during those 42 years of the War of Wrath, and he's listening to this horn again going, wait, that's a blast from the past, I mean. So
here's a bit of a small thought experiment. Does the Balrog know that the War of Wrath has ended?
Oh, I think he got out when he knew it was over.
Yeah, but I mean, does he know that Middle-earth is not occupied by the forces of the Valar? The first thing he sees is Gandalf. I mean, that's got to be really scary.
No, not the first thing, because remember, he was already awoken by the dwarves.
Oh, absolutely, but I'm saying somebody coming into Moria from the outside, and then it's something like him. It's a Maiar, and first thing he's out of Gandalf's mouth, I'm a servant of the secret fire. He's thinking the jig is up.
I agree with you, and if seeing a Maya walk through there, Balrog would have sensed it, even from the spell on the locks. He would have sensed it. He would have sensed it, not even seeing Gandalf.
Well, Gandalf knew it was something equal to him. He didn't know it was a Balrog, but he knew it was something equal to him.
Right. So I think that the Balrog would have had his radar up, and it wouldn't have been simply letting him go. He was on a death mission to kill Gandalf. Whether Gandalf found him or he had to leave the mountain to go find Gandalf, the jig was up, and Gandalf knew it. That's why he decided to let them go and handle it on his own there in the mountain. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to our final segment, which is going to be my segment. I'm going to give myself 2 minutes here to set it up. We talked about this a little bit. I said I have an idea for talking about the truth of what really happened to Melkor, who the elves call him Morgoth. Sometimes they also call him other names like Bauglir and such, but generally he's called Morgoth. what really happened to him after the War of Wrath. Now, the Silmarillion tells us what the elves believe to have happened, which is that he was chained up, he was brought to Valinor, and then he was expelled from the world. Mm-hmm. Essentially thrown out of the doors of the night to float endlessly in the outside, which is not even outer space. It's beyond creation. The void is another word that Tolkien uses to describe this. It's not space, it's where there's nothing at all. There's no planets or stars or anything. However, the elves had this thought that Melkor may return in an event known as the Dego Dagoroth, the Battle of Battles, where he will destroy the sun, he will battle Eärendil in the sky, he will be cast down to the earth, and then he will enter into a final battle with Eanwa and Tulkas and the revived spirit of Turin Turambar, where he will be finally destroyed for good, and then the world itself will be destroyed for good because of the concept of Morgoth's ring. And then it will be remade in a second music to be a world fully without evil, and the voices of the men and the elves will join the voices of the angels in singing in the new reality. I am here to tell you it's all nonsense. It's all elvish parable, because according to Tolkien, the actual reality of what may happen is a lot creepier. Now, let me set up the timer here, and let's talk about it. So Tolkien didn't intend the Silmarillion to always be taken as a history. He wanted to be taken as a mythology with a lot of historical context. And when he said the idea of Morgoth returning from the void was the elvish misunderstanding of the fact that the Valar executed him as an incarnate, and that he died as an incarnate, as Gandalf had died as an incarnate, as well as the Balrogs die as incarnate, and thus that is how his spirit was ejected from the world. And he cannot return because he essentially is outside of creation, and therefore doesn't really exist anymore, except for the fact that he poured so much of his power into the earth, into Middle-earth. Morgoth's ring is Middle-earth. And it exists all over the place, in some places more than others. It's found a lot in gold. It's not found so much in water, for example. And that Tolkien said that at some point, all of the bits of Morgoth found in the earth may actually coalesce into basically a second Morgoth. And that this is how he will return, because his essence in the world has his temperament and his wisdom. Sid, you have something to say?
There's one very brief point. There's one other place that Morgoth exists very deeply, and that is in the mind and heart of every mortal man, every human being.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
And if we...
Our fears, our fear of death, our fear of the unknown, of the void. That's him.
Well, our fear, also our irrational hatred.
100%.
I don't like to get political often, but Morgoth is really gaining in power right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. All over the world. But it's a lot scary. I mean, because if we think about the elvish version is almost romantic. He's out there floating. He figures out a way to steer himself back here. Eanwa smacks him around. Tulkas smacks him around. Who was the other one? Eärendil smacks him around, and then Turin kills him. And then Turin, even in one of these versions, becomes one of the Valar. It's a sort of thing only an elf with a very active imagination could come up with. It's very romantic. The reality is that there's still evil in the world. Now, here's my question, and because everything that I've said up until this point is just facts. These are things that Tolkien said, right? But here is what's really, really important. Could this have happened with Sauron if the ring had not been destroyed?
You mean they would have come for him
No,
and arrested him and taken him?
no. Here's my idea. Let's say the ring doesn't get destroyed; it's lost somehow, right? Let's say Gollum takes it somewhere, goes under the earth, never see him again, right?
Mhm.
Eventually, the Valar say enough is enough. They send Eowyn to Middle Earth. He beats the snot out of Sauron, kills him. The ring's
Yeah.
still out there. It's got most of Sauron's power in it.
Yep.
Could it coalesce into a second Sauron?
There, I think absolutely, because it's done it a couple of times before. And there's also that line that people don't look at closely enough, I think. And it's Gandalf, I think, who says it. The ring is Sauron. It is not only most of his power, it's also his mind, his will. This is why the ring can choose who among the 9 to attack and how to handle the ones like Sam and Frodo he doesn't do well against. It doesn't have a physical body that with arms and legs that move, but it has a mind that thinks and works short range with what it's got, which is the minds of people around it, and it works intelligently in a purely evil way.
The temperament and wisdom.
And over time, it's either wanting to hide or wanting to get back to Sauron.
Okay, I got a different take on this.
And
sorry.
its continued existence is what allowed Sauron to re-embody after the fall of Numenor, and he only lost his Anatar body. He could still appear only dark and evil, and again in the Third Age. That's how I see it.
Counterpart to that, and I'll go over to you, Matt. He had that ability to do that before the One Ring. What I'm saying is that if the Valar or whoever actually managed to completely take Sauron off the board, but the ring is unaccounted for, it's still most of Sauron left in the world, just like most of Morgoth left in the world.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
so
I'm saying that it could happen.
Yeah.
I have
I'm
a
sorry.
slightly
There's a delay here, so sometimes when we go ahead, Matt. I was just going to say that I'm very interested to hear what you think.
I'm not too far off, but I have one slight difference.
Mhm.
It is true that it took most of 51 plus of Sauron's power to put part of his Feyat into the ring, or to make the ring. I agree with that part. I, however, do not believe that most of Sauron, I believe most of his power was required to do this, but I don't believe most of Sauron is in the ring. I believe that there's a concept that I've talked about before in some of my articles, and John and I have talked about it, and that is there's a difference between Sauron actual and Sauron ring. Sauron actual is the one that's in Barad-dûr. He's the one giving orders to his Nazgul. He's the one trying to find the ring. He's the one talking through the Palantir in many, many, many passages. He is the one in Barad-dûr with the Palantir, talking, seeking, ordering, finding, communicating. The ring, while it still had a majority of his power to achieve this thing, the Sauron the ring is what I would call, for lack of a better term, the minority part. Still trying to find his way back to unification, and I'll leave it there for now. Second main point, and possibly even a bigger main point, is that Sauron is always whole in the world. If for some reason he's a oneness, if for his little trick to divide himself out and use the ring and his own power to do what he's doing with the ring is pretty much well known on this show. People can research this. That's all great. But he, if he's taken out by Eowyn, physically speaking,
yeah,
I believe that his catastrophic dissipation, if you want to call it that, is going to force a full reunification with whatever part Sauron has in the ring to join together. And they both are now unstabilized to the point where they cannot remain in Middle Earth.
I
So
don't.
it's
I don't. Well,
I
sorry,
mean,
I'll let you finish. I don't agree, but I'll let you finish, and then I'll.
yeah, that's fine. I mean, the reason I'm going with this to state it again is, I mean, and John, if you're going to disagree, you need to address this one part because we've talked about this in the
Yeah. Well,
past, and
but
that
both
is
parts I
there's
disagree.
a whole. Okay, well, there's a wholeness. There's a wholeness. Sauron is still one being in two different kinds of parts, but still one. Um, and I think it's going to be terribly difficult to. I do agree with one thing though, and that is if you destroy Sauron actual, you really haven't destroyed him until you're able to locate the ring. Do I think that Maya as powerful as Eonwë and a couple of other pipe-hitting brothers from Valinor couldn't find where the other
Wait,
ring
hold on.
is?
Did you just reference Pulp Fiction?
I did.
It's
I did.
one of my favorite films.
But if you've got the right kind of people on mission, and Eonwë isn't by himself, and you're doing this kind of thing, and you know there's the ring, I mean, the Valar know this, then you're going to bring the right people. You're calling the right dude. You're calling the right fixer to
Well,
come
wait,
into
hold on.
town.
Let's
find
back
both
up from
parts.
that. Let's back off of that because we're talking about a hypothetical that wouldn't happen because obviously they didn't do that. They sent the wizards for a reason. You were saying
Your hypothetical was that Eonwë would go and find Sauron, and if he did this to Sauron, that he wouldn't be able to leave because the ring.
That's
and I'm
not
saying,
what I
if he
said.
was doing,
That's not what I
well,
said.
if he was doing that, he would be coming to look for the ways to get all of Sauron extracted out of Middle Earth, and he'd probably be able to do it.
Okay, but that's not the question.
Okay,
that's not the question.
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
You had said something that was interesting, that if Sauron was forced to be incarnate and destroyed, that this would also sort of like destroy the ring, that it would force a unification. But that's not what happened to Morgoth. That's my point. And that what Tolkien said is that there's so much.
Morgoth wasn't divided into two different things. He wasn't. He didn't pull the same stunt.
He did. He did. That's why it's called Morgoth's ring. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
That's why it's called Morgoth's ring.
He put himself into all these things.
Into Middle Earth.
I get that.
Into Middle Earth, specifically the northeast part of Middle Earth. But my point is that because he became part of the world itself, he could not truly be destroyed without destroying the world. And then that becomes the same thing, that Sauron can't be destroyed without destroying the ring. However, what they did do was they got rid of Morgoth's incarnate form. Now, Sauron was smart enough not to make himself incarnate. He never fell into that trap, but let's say the Valar forced him to become incarnate. They were certainly able to do that. That's basically what they did with the wizards. Especially that Gandalf didn't even want to do it. My point is that Tolkien imagined this scenario where, many ages later, these bits of Morgoth in the earth, they still retain his attitude and his wisdom, his temperament. They're still him, and that is his sort of key to returning. And this really goes into, this is why you can't leave the ring with Tom Bombadil. This is why you can't chuck it into the ocean. This is why you can't just give it to Gollum, because even if we win against Sauron and we win again and again and again, and then eventually he's just too beat up to come back, or if the Valar take a heavier hand against him, he could return. And it's interesting that he's so absent from every version of the Dagor-Dagorath, because he's so maimed that he can't even help Morgoth in the final battle.
I will grant you that the Morgothic taint to the world is what you've said. I agree with that. I don't think the taint between the two is the same. I'll give you an example, and I think this kind of proves it. My point: when the ring was destroyed, Sauron in Barad-dûr, what I call Sauron actual, was also destroyed. It wasn't just the movie; it was the way it was described in the book. So there was a unification and dissipation to the point where they
But,
were unified and kicked out of the world,
but he wasn't
with the
destroyed.
ring being destroyed. With the ring being, well, I don't. What I mean is his presence, his physical nature was not destroyed. John, you know the difference of what I'm talking about. I'm
No,
saying
I'm
that when the
confused by
ring
it,
was
actually.
destroyed, no, when the ring was destroyed, he was then removed from the world as a
Body.
in-world player,
Well,
but still
okay,
a
yeah. Well,
physical.
he's
I mean, we
taken
all
off
know
the
this.
chessboard, is what you're saying.
Yes, I'm saying that. So what I'm saying is, if you have a way to deal with him in Sauron Actual, and you can find the ring and get rid of Sauron Actual, that that there would be a unification, just like the unification of destroying the ring first. The ring was destroyed first. All of Sauron went away. Okay, and that you can't get out of that part of the tie between the two. They are one thing. And the instability caused to one created the instability and dissipation of the whole.
I so regret this topic. All right. No, I really do, because you're not. I want to hear from Sid, but first, I just
Okay.
want to say the question was, if the ring is never found. That's the part that you
Oh,
seem to be
okay.
missing.
If it's just that, well, I'm not missing it, but I'm if that's just the scenario and never ever found,
Yeah.
then
Then the ring eventually, for
he's in a
lack of a
re- he's in
better
yeah,
term, hatches.
he's in a weird state. And you said it before, and I agree with you, because the ring isn't found. Let's just say if it wasn't found,
Yeah.
he wouldn't necessarily be in what was the state you called it? It was called viewer mode, or
Oh, that was
um,
I didn't come up with that. That was something somebody said on Quora.
he was
Spectator
in
mode.
his spectator mode.
Yeah.
He would be in spectator mode plus. In other words, he would be still trying to search around and have no way to really get the ring himself, because the main part of
Okay.
him
No,
is not able.
I want to
But
hear from Sid, but you're missing it. He's not there. Only the ring is. That's what I'm saying.
right,
He's not there. He's gone.
but with the
Sid, let
ring,
me hear from you, please.
I have about 5 different things to say
Go ahead.
to provide important frameworks that will make this conversation easier. Number 1, let's use Tolkien's language. Embodied beings have a Hroa, body, and a Fea, soul. So the question is, if the ring is not destroyed, but Sauron's body is destroyed, as happened at the fall of Numenor, is the ring a type of Hroa? I would tend to say yes. We see it operating in the Fellowship as a very limited Hroa, as a paraplegic Hroa, if you will, with telepathic powers that can choose Boromir of all of the 9 and grab control of him for a brief moment. It can't do a lot, but it can do something from the mind of Sauron. And again, that crucial line from Gandalf, the ring is Sauron. He obviously isn't talking about bodies there.
Yeah.
So he must be talking about Fea. Number 2, whenever we talk about anything in the future, we want to remember the very closing paragraph of the Silmarillion. Anything about the future, Manwë and Varda may know, but they have not revealed it, and it is not declared in the Doom of Mandos. And I think this is a warning against taking any legend that goes beyond about 200 of the 4th era and says all of that is speculation. And it's crucial to remember that. Number 3, if we look at what inspires Tolkien, it is very clear he was inspired by the Bible in many ways. And then when he wrote about the battle at the end of times, at that time, he was very influenced by the book of Revelation. And he later said, hey, wait a second, I shouldn't be going there.
A little bit of Ragnarok thrown in the earlier versions too, but as he revised it, it became more and more revelation. And I think you're right. I think that's why he backed off of it. He's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, he backed off of it. And lastly, the one thing we don't see in Tolkien that I personally think there's an alternative is his view is that Morgoth is utterly destroyed at the end of this world, because Morgoth's ring is this world, but yet the world is remade. And the Valar sing this, along with men and elves and dwarves, sing the Song of the Ainur for a second time, but not with a redeemed Morgoth, with Morgoth absent. Of all the species in the world before, only Morgoth and possibly Sauron and the Balrogs are truly gone.
Except Morgoth's spiritual taint still resides in the heart of men.
No, not after the second Song of the Ainur. Absolutely not.
Oh, I'm talking about after.
Yeah, because that's sort of like a New Jerusalem scenario, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a heaven on earth. Yeah.
Without any influence of Morgoth, literally, and as a hard idea to wrap your head around, after the end of time.
Yeah.
Heaven and earth, getting biblical here, fall away, and then a heavenly earth is renewed.
This is a difficult nut. So, John,
yeah, that's and Muddle in the chat, by the way, understands this better than even I do when I'm asking the question. So he says, so John, is what you're asking in forcibly incarnating Sauron but leaving the ring, would the Valar have inadvertently put Sauron in the same position to return as Morgoth? That's what the question is. Now, what they did, they learned their lesson. They didn't do that because they know he can return, but they don't want that to happen to Sauron.
You guys, I had one more point we need.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, keep going.
About all of this, without Eru as an actor, yet when the ring is involved, Eru caused the ring to slip off Isildur, or maybe the ring did that itself, given it went to Gladden Fields, where Sauron was likely to return. But certainly, Eru's hand was in Déagol and Sméagol finding the ring. Eru's hand was in Sméagol going under the Misty Mountains, where Sauron couldn't find him. Eru's hand was in Sméagol losing the ring and Gandalf picking it up. And Bilbo picking it up. And Bilbo taking it to a place that Sauron had never heard of to hide it for 60 more years to bring us to the Yu catastrophe. So where is in your story, John, and also let's go back to the Council of Elrond, what if the ring did in fact, what if they said, well, what if we make the lie, Saruman's lie true and go take a boat and drop it in the middle of the ocean? And Gandalf says, things that fall into the deep have a way of coming back and being found. He's not imagining necessarily Sauron returns if Sauron's body is destroyed, but someone would become Sauron if he found the ring, which is the fear all along. So a lot of this is laid out in the text, and I just want to come back to that.
Let me. Who else is learning a lot here? We talk about who's learning as you go on. Sauron. Learning.
Very true.
Now, about how to actually make this really difficult for everybody, and that it's not just that Sauron is intelligent and figuring this out; it's that Tolkien, the author, is figuring this out.
Yeah,
he's making this happen, and that's really cool.
Moogle, the symbol on Matt's shirt is this Saruman's white hand from the Lord of the Rings.
But
let me just reply to something you said, Sid.
No, let me give one more point from the text. Need to be correct. I know this is true of Saruman, but I also believe it is true of Sauron. Didn't Sauron pass away as a formless mist of dark smoke?
That's correct.
Well, yeah, he had voluntarily left his body to join the battle.
What his he is his Fea.
Well, yeah, let me answer your question.
Finish my sentence. His Fea is disembodied smoke in the world, just as Saruman's is.
No, because that's not his Fea. That is the chosen form that he took, because they saw a great, bigger than mountains, figure of dark cloud crowned with lightning. People like hobbits and elves and men cannot see a Fea. That they're invisible unless they take a raiment, which can be. Now, Sauron never had a Hror. That's important because he's non-incarnate. He had what's known as a fauna, which is a fake body. It's not fake in the sense that it doesn't exist. It exists. It has substance. You can touch it, but it's not literally him. He could take it off, and he could change it at will. So what he did was that he abandoned the fauna that he had, the Dark Lord personification in the Dark Tower, and then he took the form of this giant cloud, but then he didn't have any actual power because the ring had been destroyed. And that's why he was blown away on the wind. So what we saw was not the destruction of his soul, although a lot of that went with the ring, but the destruction of his, essentially, to lack of a better term, his final body, his form, his fauna. And what Gandalf said was, he is so weak now that he can't actually do anything. He can't trouble the world again.
Right. Now, here's one other thing I want to think to inject with this before we come to a final answer, now that we understand everything. And that is when...
Wait, hold on, Matt. Sid's trying to say something, and I've noticed this phenomenon, and it's quite by accident, guys, that if more than one person speaks, Sid's microphone kind of cuts out, so you weren't hearing him.
I will work on that before next month.
Yeah, yeah, that's a bit of a, because I noticed that even if I just do that while you're talking, your microphone cuts out for like a second.
And that is a setting. I know how it works in Zoom.
Yeah.
Maybe you can help me find out how it works.
I'll help. Yeah, sure. No problem. And people have to remember, because there's a delay both between us and the stream, and also between each other. We're in different parts of the country, so sometimes when it seems like we're all trying to talk over each other and everything, it's not quite the case. There's a delay.
But the cutoff is a different issue. So please let me finish.
Go ahead. Yeah.
The word used was fauna.
Fauna. Yeah. Fauna.
Yeah. So the question is, when Gandalf said that he can trouble the world no more, was Gandalf speaking about the end of the Third Age, the end of the Fourth Age, or was Gandalf going beyond that? He can never reform again.
I take it as never.
I agree with that.
But if we take it as that, violates the end of the Silmarillion, where Tolkien says anything stated about the future, which is beyond 200 years into the Fourth Age, is not known, or known only by Manwë and Varda, and they're not talking.
You're actually very correct, but Gandalf uses very specific language to sort of skirt around that, where he says none can foresee his return.
Right, which means he might come back.
That was what I was getting at.
And
that's what I've been getting at. Now, in this scenario... where
we don't know.
Actually, you know what? The scenario that Tolkien himself talked about in the foreword, where what if he really did base the Lord of the Rings on real world events? And he talked about point by point how it would have been different. And one of the things he said was that the ring would not have been destroyed, but used against Sauron.
Okay. So, okay, look, I have something I got to say here, because I want to have a kind of an answer to this, but I want to add one thing. to help us understand the nature of the rules that Tolkien has put into place, and one of them has to be the end of Numenor. He never left his throne without his ring. Everyone I've ever talked to, including John in the past and Sid, we all think that he took the ring with him to Numenor. And when he is destroyed by destroying the temple and the waves, and he's overcome, the narrative clearly says that he rises from the depths as a smoky, what I call a soot form, and is blown away by the wind and goes in the direction, not just the wind, but goes in the direction of Barad-dûr again. So there's some kind of control over what direction he's going out there in the middle of the ocean now. So that goes to Will. The point, though, as I'm making is that whatever form he's in, he is all of Hora at that point. He is all of Fea at that point, and the ring is with him.
But he doesn't have a
unified.
Hroa. That's important to note. He has a fauna.
Yeah, but smoke is a physical thing in the world.
It doesn't say smoke. It says ill wind. At the end of the Third Age, it said smoke. But that, yes,
Okay, but
fauna are physical objects. That's why I said they are real. They are just, it's not, the difference between a fauna and a Hroa is that a damage to a Hroa is damage to the person. Damage to a fauna is like your shirt getting ripped.
But there's one other thing. What Matt is saying is completely affirmed in Tolkien's letters.
Mm-hmm.
Tolkien, one point
Sorry
says, I'm putting this in language, but Tolkien says,
scared the hell out of me.
Well, I don't know it, but Sauron could have found a way to take the ring with him when he floated off towards Barad-dûr. So it is very clear in the letters that Matt is right on target.
Yeah, he had the ring with him. That's 100%. And what Tolkien said in his letters was, you don't need to boggle, your mind doesn't need to boggle about a spirit carrying a ring. If I say a spirit can carry a ring, then a spirit can carry a ring. But my question is, what does this have to do with the hypothetical question that I've been trying to address?
I'm trying to get there. What I'm trying to say is that at that point, there's no way to get around the idea that whatever Sauron is, he is in totality, including the ring, together at one point as he comes from the waves and then goes to Barad-dûr at that point. There's no separation of him anymore. There's all one thing. So if he is all at one thing as he rises from the wave and he has the ring with him, then there's a unification of him, an automatic unification, because he is now in a spiritual form. The ring is part of that whole spiritual form. It's not metal anymore. It's just a spiritual element at that point. And he, in totality, goes to Barad-dûr. It's a really clear passage. So now here we are. If Sauron is destroyed, if Sauron is taken from the world and the ring is still remaining as some kind of an anchor, although that's a terrible analogy to this, I don't think, if there's no way to find the ring at all,
yeah, that's what we're going with.
Then Sauron has achieved a problem for the Valar, which I think is overcome by the fact that I think they can find the ring. They can find part of Maiar,
of course,
is underground someplace.
No, I disagree on both points. Because we're leaving Eru as an actor around the ring out, and we know he has been an actor around the ring. If we could take the simpler case, they threw the ring into the ocean, and Sauron gets defeated. Gandalf says, we must not look to only solving the problem of our own age. As long as the ring is still in the world, it could arise again, and someone could find it. We're saying, could it also arise again and reform a body? I don't know.
That was the question that I wanted addressed.
And when we ask that question, we are speculating about the future. So we've got to be very careful about the warning at the end of the Silmarillion.
But if that's the case, then we're right back.
Well, we're only
to the
guessing.
anchor situation again. No, well, I know, but we would be essentially at the soul anchor situation again.
Right. But I'm saying let us guess or speculate with caution because of the end of the Silmarillion, but also say if the reason I think that even the Valar couldn't find the ring is the ring was only ever found by a
People.
direct intervention of Eru.
Yeah.
No, of Eru. Eru guiding. Now, if Eru says to Manwe, hey, look halfway between Aman and Middle Earth.
Look under this one specific rock and you'll find it. Yeah.
Got this one rock at the very depth of the ocean, you'll find it. That way, but I'm saying Eru, pun intended, Eru has a hand in finding the ring.
And
if
I
the
want
ring
to
is everything, if the ring is everything that you say it is, hold on, John, it'll be quick.
Well, I'm
If the
trying to
ring is
respond to Sid.
everything, I'm okay. Go ahead.
Now, Matt, then John. I just decided.
I'm going off what Sid said too. If the ring is what we're all saying it is, which is most of his power to achieve a harnessing of a good portion of his Fea, I don't agree that the Valar, if they decide to go look for it or assign Eowyn and a couple of his specialists to come over and find it, that they're not going to be able to find it because they're looking for a Maya. They can find their own, no matter how it's divided,
Okay, that's
anchored,
categorically untrue. Categorically disproven in the Silmarillion.
That's Matt. What you're missing from my view is if Eru doesn't want the ring found, it won't be found by Valar or anyone else.
They didn't find Sauron. They didn't find the Balrogs after they stormed Utunmo. They were too deep in the earth. They looked. They couldn't find Sauron. They couldn't find the Balrogs.
I know, but I was talking about where your example in the beginning was that Gollum still had it, or it was someplace hidden, but not.
This is why I regret. This is why I should have picked a different topic because we have not. No, it's a good topic if we ever get to it.
Okay.
Sid came close to it, but I've been trying to read. Now I'm asking. We haven't even addressed the question, and we're over time. And that's the challenge that I'm having right now. Is I'm saying, let's say there's a hypothetical where Sauron is taken off the board, and the ring is not found. And what you've done here is basically told me that the premise is impossible, and I get that. But that's not the discussion. The discussion is, could the ring on its own, without Sauron around, become Sauron again?
As the minority part, I say no. As the minority part of him?
It's not the minority part of him. It's the greater part of his power.
And the lesser part of his Fea.
But no.
Power and Fea are the same thing.
No, and who's in control in Barad-dûr?
Hold it. Okay. The Fea can bilocate, but it is indivisible. That's the nature of souls.
Yes.
And therefore, if Sauron's last body was destroyed, keeps happening, Hana, I believe the word was,
Fauna.
But
that's Fauna.
Ring, Fauna, sorry. Yeah. But the ring still is Sauron.
Yeah.
Then from that point, Sauron's Fea is located with the ring. And we already know from Gandalf, if these things have a way of being found, and when they are, we know the ring can corrupt anyone who picks it up. Now, John is saying, well, what if the ring arises somehow and no one picks it up? Could it form a body? And my reply is, I believe we have the right to speculate either way, as long as we declare it speculation because of that last paragraph in the Silmarillion.
Surmises, yeah.
Are you okay? So are you saying then that the ring as an anchor, the only thing that's still kind of not destroyed, could attract and reform whatever was dissipated in the other part of Sauron, and then
no,
be
that's not
a whole thing from there?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Not what? But could the ring, as speculation, could the ring,
surmise.
for the end of the world, resurface, not be found by someone who picks it up, and somehow make itself a body? And my reply is, if Eru allows it, that's always one caveat.
Well, that's always going to be the caveat for anything. Absolutely.
If Eru allows it, like, what if he thinks we didn't learn look at what we're doing today in the world, we didn't learn to get rid of our ring yet, and he wants us free peoples of Middle Earth, to stand up in what I'm guessing might be the 8th age at this point, and face it, then, and this is in line with Tolkien, as you quoted, John, identifying the ring with atomic weapons.
Mm-hmm.
The ring now has reappeared in some form, and we have to deal with it. Again, Eru allowing, I think it is a reasonable speculation, but we have to keep it as a speculation because of that last paragraph.
Oh, well, I refer to it as entering the realm of surmise, and it does have borders, as we talked about, like, I think it was 2 months ago. But here's my thought on this. Let's because I realize that I've been dropping, like, basically this heavily metaphysical thing, and maybe we weren't prepared for it. Maybe we should have discussed it prior, before I brought it up, because the idea was that it could happen with Melkor. So my question really was, if it could happen with Melkor, could it happen with Sauron? And we got very bogged down in particulars and talking about Numenor and all this stuff, which we do. We're human. We do that all the time, right? Let's alter it in a very more understandable way. Let's say Sauron is gone. He is defeated by whatever means you deem necessary. Let's say somebody took the ring and defeated him. Galadriel, whoever, right? Let's say that happened. That person, Gandalf, that person becomes the Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Are they at that point Sauron?
You're talking about the blending of two spirits.
I'm not talking about that. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the domination of one spirit over another.
Oh.
To me, this one, John, is clearly answered in the text, in one way by Galadriel, and in another statement of it by Gandalf.
Yeah.
The difference of feeling is there, but the concept is the same. Each of them said, if I took the ring would utterly overcome me, and I would become Sauron, only worse, because I would look fair.
Mm-hmm.
So I would become really Anatar.
Yeah.
Something very like Anatar.
Or in Gandalf's case, it would be so much worse than Anatar because everybody in the world likes him already.
Yeah.
Okay,
exactly.
I want to say one other thing before we go to this new scenario, because I think it'll help me give my answer to that new scenario there. Gandalf, as a Maya, knows Sauron has to be unified to take form.
He's always unified. This is what Tolkien said in his letter. Why
is he looking for the ring?
Because he doesn't want anybody else to have it, and because it's very useful to him, and because it would weaken his enemies by not allowing Galadriel and Elrond and Gandalf to use their rings.
That is partially true, but not fully true. It also makes him more powerful and brings him back to his normal amplification that he got out of making the ring.
Okay,
to make him
that's
more powerful.
Exactly. It makes him more powerful. No, he has form. Why do you think he doesn't have form? What do you think the necromancer was? What do you think was sitting?
When he lost the ring, he wasn't able to take full physical form.
That's not true. Lost the ring. You know that's not true. We've talked about this.
He needed the ring to be in full physical form again.
Yeah, he had 9 fingers. Gollum saw them.
Thank you.
That means he had full form.
Yes, that's absolutely true. What do you think the necromancer was?
It just took a long time.
It wasn't a cloud of smoke.
I think he did have. I did think he did have 4 fingers, but I don't think he was in. I think he was in the shape of that human being, but not in full physical all the way together because he wasn't combined
Okay.
and unified yet.
He's always unified. What Tolkien said is that he is not diminished by being separated from the ring. He is always in rapport with its power.
His Fea. I'm going to say, if you want to continue this conversation, I'm happy to do it all night if you want, or next month.
But yeah, we've gone so far over time, and I think it's because we're having so much fun.
Yeah, we're having fun.
Yeah.
I don't. But damn it, let me finish. No, I'm just kidding.
Let me give us a challenge. If we continue this conversation tonight or next month, let's be extraordinarily careful as we speak. Let's use the term Fea when we mean Fea, the term Hana when we mean Hana.
Fauna.
Fauna, sorry.
Fauna.
I'm tired.
It's okay.
It's a word I'd never heard before. So Fea when it's a Fea, Fauna when it's a Fauna, and let's keep in mind those 5 things I listed as the framework or ground rules around the conversation.
Chat's loving this, by the way.
And John, if you're interested, I would be willing to write up those boundaries of how we will conduct the conversation, and we can continue next month.
Yeah.
Well, we're all good.
No, I just want to sort of I just want to sort of sum up here. He always had physical form, and all of his power exists within the boundaries of the circles of the world. Some of it is in his form, which is a Fea cloaked with a Fauna, sometimes uncloaked when he wishes to be uncloaked, but he usually has a Fauna, which is a visible physical form, but that is not bound to, he's not stuck in that, because that would make it a Heroa, which is an incarnate body, like what Gandalf has, for example. Now, what I am saying is that he wants the ring back for a lot of reasons. But the biggest reason of all is it's his. That's the biggest thing of all. It's something, and this is something that Gandalf made very clear when he talked to Frodo, and he said he would torture you just for holding it. Yeah. Anybody who held his ring would be tormented.
So let's get back to the main question real quick before this is over with.
Yeah, Sid's trying to say something.
One short sentence. Greed is a mortal sin. And that's what John is saying, that Sauron is the embodiment of greed.
Especially considering he made the ring out of gold, which is, in Tolkien's own word, the Morgoth element.
Yeah. Now, Morgoth wanted to rule the world, replacing Eru. Sauron wanted to own all the people in the world. He's the ultimate slave master. He wants to own and torture other people.
He craves control over every aspect of everything. He wants to be in control of what you do, what you eat, what you breathe, what you say. Morgoth, he was a little more chaotic. He wanted to ruin creation to prove a point to Eru.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So we're kind of there now.
Yeah.
And so the answer to I guess I'm saying that
it's a wild ride, but we got there.
Yeah, and this is a tough topic. I would admit.
Yeah, and it's my fault. I should have prepared us better.
It's not your fault.
It is. I'm taking blame. I should have emailed you guys and said, this is what I'm going to talk about. These are the exact parameters, and this is,
okay.
And
I think it's good for the audience to see how baloney is made, sometimes, and this conversation is good. It is good for them. I mean, it's
Right.
good for everybody to kind of see it. Now, the point though is I'm trying to make though is at the end here, if I still come back to the idea that it can't be done. Because if he is one thing, he can't be taken out of the world and still have a ring left if he is a one totality of something. It's almost like an oxymoron type
That's
of a
what.
question, which
But my point is, that's what happened to Morgoth.
I think it's a metaphoric figure of speech.
Oh, hey, there we go. We got
that
something real.
Morgoth
Okay.
that Morgoth is actually in the world, in the hearts of men, represented in gold. He is definitely gone. I think the two are apples and oatmeal in a certain way, but metaphorically speaking, yes, John, you are one. In my opinion, you're 100% correct. And the confusion is one being almost taken literally as a part of the rules of Middle Earth according to Tolkien, and the other one is what Tolkien does a lot of, which is explain metaphor. He is in the world. His Morgothic taint is in the world. It is in men's hearts. You are correct. It is his ring in that way. But the distinction between the two is a distinction with a difference. But I think you're right. If we're going that way, I guess that's where I conclude on the Morgoth thing. Um, and the Sauron thing is for me. He just wouldn't be able to be divisible the way that it was posed. And I think in the end, we really did a good job in showing how difficult that is to parse out between how Tolkien writes and communicates. Some of it is rule based explanation of his world, and then he's got so much of the metaphor going on that's also factually true. And it's this is why some people wonder how can you study Tolkien for 40 years? Well, this is
Yeah, we'll be studying it for
great
quite a while
example.
longer.
Well, right, but
Sid has something to say, but I have a joke before I hand it to him. I want to let you guys know that I am trying to look at the webcam. And the reason that I do that is so that I'm basically looking at the audience. So I actually only see Matt and Sid out of the corner of my eye. And when Sid wishes to speak, he does this. And sometimes I see that hand on Matt's shirt and I get confused. But go ahead, Sid.
No, this is the hand of Gandalf. That's the hand of Sauron. Okay. And thank you. If we go with what Matt said, we have to add one very important thing that we know as fact. And this is revealed most deeply when Saruman utterly corrupts Numenor and creates a devotional faith worshiping Sauron and Morgoth. And that worship increases their power. So as long as Sauron or Morgoth is in the minds of men, when we perform evil acts, they get more power as Fea. And therefore, it is conceivable, in my view, that more power means more ways to figure out how to re-embody.
I love that, and I have a philosophical answer for this too, or a parting of the minds at this point. And I had this note a while ago, and I'm glad I came back to it because it's really important to me personally. And I think that what John was saying about the doors of night, Morgoth ring, metaphor, being in the world, taint, and all these kind of things.
But it's two different things, but yes.
Yes, it all we've discussed all that. The guard at the doors of night, metaphorically, actually might very probably be the guard we have on our own heart, as the guard we have against Morgoth, in our heart and in the world. And that Turin's defeat of Morgoth, is the rising of Turin in our own hearts to be valiant.
Hey, Santa Cruz.
To be valiant as a Valar in defeating Morgoth. That's the rise of Turin in our own hearts to be valiant and the destruction of the Morgothic taint in the world. And as a metaphor, I just felt that was really, really good, John, and really kind of where
Oh,
we are
thank
if
you.
we're looking at this in a full
I
metaphor.
I know I feel like I bungled this section, but both you two and the chat have made me feel a lot better about it. I want to end it the way that I should have begun it, which is to read this passage from Morgoth's Ring, the book Morgoth's Ring, that describes what I was talking about. This is Tolkien's notes. It's not part of the Silmarillion. This is Tolkien speaking as author. The war was successful, and ruin was limited to the small if beautiful region of Beleriand. Morgoth was thus actually made captive in physical form, and in that form taken as a mere criminal to Aemon and delivered to Namamandos as judge and executioner. He was judged, and eventually taken out of the blessed realm and executed, that is, killed like one of the incarnates. It was then made plain, though it must have been understood beforehand by Manwë and Namo, that though he had disseminated his power, his evil and possessive and rebellious will, far and wide into the matter of Arda, he had lost direct control of this, and that all that he, as a surviving remnant of integral being, retained as himself, and under control was the terribly shrunken and reduced spirit that inhabited his self-imposed but now beloved body. When that body was destroyed, he was weak and utterly houseless, and for that time at a loss and unanchored as it were. So your anchor metaphor, by the way, excellent, actually. You thought it was bad, it was good. And for that time, I read that part. We read that he was then thrust out into the void. That should mean that he was put outside time and space, outside Ea altogether. But if that were so, would imply a direct intervention of Eru, with or without supplication of the Valar. It may, however, refer inaccurately to the extrusion or flight of his spirit from Arda. In any case, in seeking to absorb, or rather to infiltrate himself throughout matter, that was what was left of him was no longer powerful enough to reclothe itself. It would now remain fixed in the desire to do so. There was no repentance or possibility of it, which supports what Sid said. Melkor had abandoned forever all spiritual ambitions and existed almost solely as a desire to possess and dominate matter. This supports what Matt said. And Arda in particular. At least it could not yet reclothe itself. We need not suppose that Manwë was deluded into supposing that this had been a war to end war, or even to end Melkor. Melkor was not Sauron. We speak of him being weakened, shrunken, reduced, but this is in comparison with the great Valar. He had been a being of immense potency and life. The elves certainly held and taught that fear or spirits may grow of their own life independently of the body, even as they may be hurt and healed, be diminished and renewed. The dark spirit of Melkor's remainder might be expected, therefore, eventually, and after long ages, to increase again, ever as some held to draw back into itself some of its formerly dissipated power. It would do this even if Sauron could not, because of its relative greatness. So there's the answer.
Even if Sauron could not.
That's the answer.
No, implies maybe Sauron could.
Yeah. Okay. It's not as cut and dry in that. Okay. But basically he's saying that
even though Sauron could not.
Yeah. He said even if. You're right. He's very specific in the words that he uses. What he's saying is that his supposition, because even he is abiding what you said, that last paragraph of the Silmarillion, and making suppositions and surmises, his supposition is that he doesn't necessarily think Sauron could do that, but he thinks that Melkor possibly could because he was so much greater.
Makes perfect sense to me. And also I want to say this type of thinking is really crucial to me because it exactly determines what is, in my role as an author, acceptable speculation in fanfic versus out of canon fanfic I would not go to. So he set the limits of future ideas, speculations, fanfics specifically about both Morgoth and Sauron.
Yeah, I mean, and it's that sort of sub-creation, and we talked about the borders of the realm of surmise and how, you could write anything you want. You could write characters. There's a lot of gaps. You could, and we talked about both last month and this month about Legolas a lot. Because he's such a mysterious character, because we know so little about him, and we have supposed a lot about him, and it's well-formed and very educated surmise, but it is still surmise. And you could write so many stories of Legolas having so many different adventures and deeds in the early Third Age, or even if you think he's that old, to go back to the late Second Age. But you can't write him as being incredibly out of character. That's important. He still has to be Legolas.
Yeah. And you could do a formative years of Legolas. How did he grow as a young man to become the Legolas we came to
and
know?
You bear the brunt of responsibility of making sure you end on a note where people can see how he would become the formed character that he was in The Lord of the Rings.
And you can do the same with Frodo. We know so little about Frodo the orphan. That's another one.
Sid, I want to see a story about him stealing Farmer Maggot's mushrooms and getting caught. I mean, people don't realize it. Like, Frodo was kind of a young punk, huh? For a little while,
maybe. Yeah,
I would use miscreant.
He was certainly independent.
Yeah.
That's for
he
sure.
He was mischievous. He was out there stealing people's crops, and what else did he get up to?
Well, he was a took.
Wait, well, no.
I would argue actually that I think kids picking food out of farms not their own and eating it was just accepted, except by people like Farmer Maggot.
Well, I think that there was a hint towards Frodo, and we still saw it in The Lord of the Rings a little bit, being a little bit too greedy when it comes to the subject specifically of mushrooms.
Absolutely.
And I think
but he says all hobbits.
But you don't hear like a Bilbo doing it or Merry doing it. Like nobody went so far as to Farmer Maggot saying, "Hey man, if you do this again, I'm going to let my dogs eat you."
Yeah,
which is wild.
Yeah, I think there's a particular collision against Frodo as a more miscreant hobbit and Maggot as a more strict moralist.
Yeah. Well, even if he doesn't necessarily need to be a strict moralist. He could be, but I think he might have just had enough after a point. Like he might let it go once or twice, but maybe Frodo came back to the proverbial tree of knowledge one too many times.
But remember two things about Maggot. One, he was willing to stand up to a Black Rider.
Oh yeah, unshakable dude.
And two, he was the only named drinking buddy of Bombadil.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. So true.
But Maggot turned out to be a really kind fellow. He just, like I said, he was yes, he didn't want the Nazgul. It's almost like he could probably sense that they were evil. He didn't want them anywhere near them. He told them, "Get the heck off my property." But he was a very kind fellow. He just wasn't a weak fellow. He wasn't a doormat by any means. I'm just thinking, like, how far did Frodo really push him when he was a young lad? Probably pretty far.
It's a good question, and I think it also comes back with
Frodo got scared straight.
I think that Maggot and his ancestors were, call it students of Bombadil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, here's a question. Could they also have been some of the hobbits that Gandalf was said to come and take on adventures in the distant past?
Say that again?
I believe those were mostly Tooks.
Probably, but the Tooks, they didn't always live only in one place. The place was named after them eventually, but mainly, yeah, I'm sure it was mostly the Took family. But we see that the Brandybucks and those of Buckland are not exactly like the Shire hobbits. You know, they're a little bit made different, and the proximity
hear
to
you.
Bombadil probably has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, I think that it is important. I think that Gandalf will look and say, Bombadil's got him. He's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
I'll go grab a Duke.
I mean, actually, you know, if you see somebody with, and by the way, in the chat, a quote from Frodo about the mushrooms: "They're mine." He was a little greedy when it came to mushrooms. Now, personally, and I said this like because somebody asked me once, "How much like a hobbit are you?" And I said, "Well, there's one instance in which I'm very much like a hobbit, not like a hobbit.
Mushroom.
I think mushrooms are disgusting. I think they're vile. I can't even stand to look at them, much less eat them."
Dude,
But
John, that's exactly like me. I cannot.
I
cannot stand
really, I didn't know that about you. They're
Yeah.
anathema to me. I
No
just think
way. And I can eat anything. Anything.
I'm inviting you guys over to dinner to taste my mushroom.
No, I wouldn't. I'll be honest with you. That's one of those things that I have such
Thank
a
you.
strong aversion to, and I'm an adventurous eater, Sid. You know what I mean?
Well,
I've eaten some
Sean,
crazy things.
You're damn near Epicurean.
Yeah, I can be, but mushrooms is one thing that I'll tell you a quick story. We're pretty much done, but we're just having fun at this point. I'll tell you a quick story, Sid. I went to a chain restaurant. Everybody thought it was good. I didn't think it was. Outback Steakhouse. I thought it was terrible, but I went there because everybody kept telling me how good it was. And it was a terrible experience, and I won't go over all the ways that it was a terrible experience, but I will say that the waiter pushed an appetizer on me, and he said it was a chicken quesadilla, and I said, well, I love chicken quesadillas. I said, what's in it? And he said, well, there's chicken, and there's cheese, and there's like peppers and onions. And I said, yeah, that's all good. Let's have that, right? I bite into it, and the first thing I taste is bacon. I like bacon. It doesn't bother me, but I just thought it was sort of irresponsible to not mention bacon because there are a lot of people that don't eat bacon for various reasons, health reasons, spiritual reasons, you know. So I was just like, well, that seems like a pretty big thing to leave out. But then I start tasting something in there that's different, and I'm just like, there's something in here that is not food. And I don't know what it is, and I actually pulled it out of my mouth, and the lighting is so poor in this place, I can't see what I'm looking at. And I eventually get the attention of some employee, and I said, what is this? And he said, it's a mushroom. And I was like, it's like I almost had to leave and go to the bathroom to vomit. You know what I mean? It was like, I knew that there was just something unnatural. I felt like, Sam, please, sir, don't let it turn me into anything unnatural.
Yes, this is
I love
utterly
that scene
hilarious.
from the movie.
Because Outback is one of my favorite restaurants.
Oh, that's funny. Well, it was a dreadful experience for me. I had cold potatoes and a gamey, overcooked steak that was way over seasoned, and
you know, I want to point out something about the movie that was really funny, and it's intentional. It has to be. Right after that scene about turning me something unnatural, if you look at the movie, it immediately cuts to Gandalf. Hurry up, right? Hurry up, Sam. It shows Gandalf moving through the screen and Frodo with with a rope tied to build a pony, as though Sam had been turned into a pony.
Yeah, it did.
It didn't say
yeah.
Bill. He said, "Hurry up, Sam."
He said, "Come along now, Sam," and then you see a horse.
And they only see those three for probably 2 seconds or so before you see Sam come up behind that. And I think it was done on purpose for people to go, "Oh my God, Gandalf turned him into a pony." It was so funny when I first saw it the first time.
I think you're right that was the intention. It never dawned on me because I knew the story, so I knew he didn't turn him into a pony. But
too long of a pause for there not to have been.
I think you're right.
And of course, that is what Sam would get turned into, because even when he was a hobbit, he was a pack animal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He carried 10 times as much per body weight percentage as anything else.
Yeah, you're gonna go, Sam, but we're gonna turn you into something useful. And he cut to that scene, and he's this pony, and I'm laughing at it because I know he's like I know he's not turned into a pony, but the way
But
the shot was done
I
sure
never
looked
thought
like
of that before.
it's
And
so
by
great.
the way, just for anybody wondering, in the book, the threat to have Gandalf turn Sam into something actually came from Frodo. He said something
Huh.
about, "I'll have Gandalf turn you into a spotted toad," or some such thing. Frodo's a lot darker in the book than he is in the movie.
That's
Like
good.
there's a moment in the Two Towers where where Frodo has like almost like a moment of nihilism that you never expect it to come out of like Elijah Wood's mouth, for example. You know, he says something to Sam like, "What does it matter? We're gonna die anyway."
Yeah, I think you're talking about as they're going through the
It's
the
either
undead marsh.
yeah, it's either in the Dead Marshes or perhaps slightly after that. It's
Yeah.
around that. It's in that chapter at least. But he says
Yeah.
something like, "What does it matter? We're all gonna die anyway." Like, and it's just like, whoa. And I remember when I was doing my reading on live, and I said, "That's got to be the darkest thing Frodo ever said."
Yeah.
That's got to be. You know, that's pretty messed up. That he's that bereft of hope, which is why Sam had to absolutely be there, because Sam was never really bereft of hope until he thought Frodo died. Then he was pretty messed up.
But he didn't stop. If you look
Yeah.
at lifted Frodo's spirit out of the dead marshes when Frodo fell in and saw the candle. He lifted the ring when he thought Frodo's body was dead. And when Frodo couldn't go on, he picked up Frodo and carried him.
Mhm.
That might be if I'm gonna leave, I'm gonna have to leave Gandalf because I may do a deep dive on Sam for that one.
I would love that. And also, and just to show how determined Frodo was, even though he was sure that he was going to his demise, that he was not going to survive the quest, when after Sam had carried him for quite some time, eventually Sam's back gave out and he couldn't carry him any longer. And he just says 3 simple words: "I'll crawl, Sam."
Yeah.
That's powerful. That's powerful.
I really do need to go.
We got to get out of here. We're way over time, but just to highlight a funny thing from chat, Joe Quake, and I think this might be directed at Matt. Sam is a 1.5 Hobbit.
Yeah, you know,
I think
1.3.
Not-
1.3 for sure.
And how much he can carry.
Well, in endurance, certainly. In endurance, in strength, in stoutness. Maybe not in everything, but in a lot of things, you know.
Yeah, I agree.
We talked about how, you know, he got to the Watcher before Boromir did.
Yeah.
How many people are still left in the chat?
I actually don't. I can't see both chats right now, but there's still quite a few people in there.
Well, it's a good show tonight. Nice job, everybody.
Let's go over to, where are we here? That's the one. There it is. The Grey Havens. There we sail off into the west. Schedule wise, let's talk about this.
I'm going to bow out.
Yeah,
Bye,
okay,
everybody.
Sid, we'll see you. And yeah, that was a very long one, but like all of our segments went long, by the way. The only one where the alarm went off was during mine because I forgot about it. But in both of Matt's section and Sid's section, when it was about a minute left, I just turned it off and I was like, why stop? We're having a good time. The time limits are really because, for Sid's benefit, but since I noticed he was so full of stamina, he was a little Samwise himself today, we kind of just let it go. So anyway, schedule-wise, if you're watching me on Twitch, I stream every day, and I'll be here tomorrow with Dragon Quest II's post-game stuff. Saturday with Xenoblade 3, Sunday with Mega Man 04, and so on and so on. Next Thursday, I will be live on both platforms, and we will be reading The Return of the King. We'll be continuing along where we left off, which was, if I am looking at it right now, I think we read The Passing of the Grey Company, so we're going to go into the Muster of Rohan, so we'll be going along with that. In 2 weeks, on the 14th, I'll be here playing that Two Towers game on the Game Boy. In 3 weeks, on the 21st, will probably be another reading. I'll let you guys know if otherwise. Next Council of Tolkien, June 4th. I will be here, and Matt will be here, and Laurel will be here. Not Sid. Laurel will be here, and we're going to be performing Sid's play based on Beren and Luthien. And that's going to be really cool. That's going to be fun. So anyway, let me set up the Twitch raid. Because if you're watching on Twitch, we're going to raid somebody. If you're watching on YouTube...
John, I'm being called to dinner. I'm going to go do that.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. You don't have to stay if you don't need. If you're watching on YouTube, the live is going to end. So let's pick out a raid.
Good seeing you, John.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no problem. I'll be in touch.
Good show.
Who are we raiding? You know what? I'm going to raid Dre. I haven't seen him in a bit. Sleepyhead Dre is in the retro. Oh, he's playing Punch-Out. Let's raid him.
I don't even know how I got hit there.
Okay.
I'm not even
He's
dodging
fighting
either.
Bald Bull here, so we're going to do this. All right, guys, there's your raid call. Copy and paste it as we head into Dre's stream. He is playing Punch-Out, the Wii version. If you're watching on YouTube, the live's about to end. I will see you guys